Chapter 586. What's the matter? Senior sister, feel free to speak your mind. Tai Budin was very grateful to her senior sister and said heartily, "Can I ask, what does this child's father look like?" Yang Ruolan's voice was trembling. Tai Budin cast a gentle glance at her son, who was sound asleep. She pursed her lips and smiled. "Senior sister, is there a need to ask? This child's appearance is almost exactly the same as his father's." "Exactly the same?" Yang Ruolan's voice was trembling. She felt as if a thunderbolt had struck her heart. "Did I find the wrong person last time?" Her body trembled and swayed, giving Tai Budin a fright. Suddenly, a crazy thought popped up in her mind. Could it be, that person is my son? And this little fellow that I feel so close to is my grandson? She clearly knew that this was a bit whimsical, unrealistic, and too speculative, but she couldn't help thinking about it. She couldn't help but deduce, and yearn for it. Yang Ruolan's face was flushed red for a moment, but it would turn pale in the next moment. Her heartbeat was like the beating of a drum. Even Tai Budin could hear it clearly. "Senior sister, what's wrong?" Tai Budin asked worriedly. Yang Ruolan turned a deaf ear to her. Suddenly, she asked in a hoarse voice, "His surname is Chu?" Tai Budin nodded doubtfully. She thought to herself, although this is a secret, didn't you know it long ago? "His name is Chu Yang?" Yang Ruolan asked. "Yes," Tai Budin said. "How old is he?" She asked again. "Should be 18 or 10? Tai Budin said uncertainly. "How old is he?" Yang Ruolan's eyes widened. "Yes, I heard that he is an abandoned child and doesn't know his background." Tai Budin replied thoughtfully. Yang Ruolan's throat issued an unknown moan. It seemed as if she had been struck by lightning. Her soft heart also seemed to have been pierced by a red-hot steel needle. She couldn't help but see stars. Her body swayed for a while before she finally managed to calm herself down. She realized that her face was already covered in tears. Abandoned child. Doesn't know his background. These two sentences made Yang Ruolan's entire body hurt. Her internal organs seemed to be churning, spasming, and hurting at this moment. She was in so much pain that her vision turned black and she almost lost consciousness. His soul seemed to be floating around in a daze. He only heard his own voice asking, "He's an abandoned child? Don't you know your background? Don't know my age?" Tai Butian's voice seemed to float over from the clouds. "He was adopted by his master when he was young. The Empress, Wu Qianqian, is his senior sister. I'm not too sure about his past." "Empress Wu Qianqian is his senior sister?" Yang Ruolan felt as if she had gone through a treacherous journey. Her entire body was sweating profusely. She didn't have any strength left. In fact, she had exhausted all her strength just to sit on the edge of the bed. He had been adopted by his master since he was a young, abandoned child. He didn't know his background. This child looked exactly like his father, as if he had been plucked from his father's face. Yang Ruolan's soul floated in the air. Her eyes were lifeless. Only big drops of tears fell from her eyes. Tai Budin called her a few times, but she didn't hear her at all. Her soul had wandered off. His master? Yang Ruolan finally thought of this question. This was undoubtedly an important clue. Yang Ruolan was a little paranoid. Her intuition was wishful thinking. What's his master's sect? Beyond the Heavens sect. Who's his master? What's his name? I heard that his name is Meng Chao Ran. He's the youngest junior brother of the Beyond the Heavens sect. Yang Ruolan asked faster and faster. Tai Budin answered fluently. Now, she also felt that something was wrong. She was a little scared and inexplicably flustered. She also had a vague intuition. This vague intuition made Tai Butian's face turn pale. Then it turned red. She answered Yang Ruolan's questions cautiously. It can't be. Can't be. It can't be so coincidental. Chu Yang is an abandoned child. I heard that senior sister and brother-in-law also lost their child 18 years ago. They haven't found him yet. Tai Budin also panicked. A feeling of shame welled up in her heart. Can't be. It can't be so coincidental, can it? Oh my God. This is really. The strong and wise monarch of a country, the unparalleled overlord who controlled the life and death of billions of people, the first emperor of an empire, suddenly panicked. In the panic, their eyes met unintentionally. In Yang Ruolan's eyes, there was doubt. Hope, hope, hope. In Tai Butian's eyes, there was surprise, shyness, fear, uncertainty, and a little bit of vague understanding mixed with a thick sense of shame. Yang Ruolan said in a daze. Do. Tai Butian said in a daze. Both of them opened and closed their mouths at the same time. They were silent. They saw the complicated expressions on each other's faces. You first. You first. They spoke at the same time again. Then they were silent at the same time. Cough, 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 cough. I heard that you. It was as if the two women were under a spell. They stood in the same place, opened and closed their mouths at the same time. Then they said the same thing and just sat there in a daze. I'll go first. Yang Ruolan sighed. You brother-in-law, brother-in-law. Suddenly, she found the word, brother-in-law, extremely awkward. Tai Butian's white jade-like face flushed red at once. It was as if a fire had suddenly ignited. She lowered her head deeply. Her heart started to beat wildly. Please don't be so coincidental. If my mother-in-law caught me red-handed, Tai Butian felt that if that was really the case, there would be a crack in the ground that she could immediately hide in. She would be embarrassed to death. Yang Ruolan cleared her throat and said, 18 years ago, my child was lost in the lower three heavens. He hasn't been found until now. Tian, look at my appearance. Do you see any cough resemblance to your? Yang Ruolan coughed but looked at Tai Butian with eyes full of hope. Tai Butian moaned. Her whole body seemed to be on fire. She actually started to tremble. When she saw Chu failing just now, she felt that this brother-in-law looked very familiar. It was as if she had seen him somewhere before. Moreover, she felt very familiar with him. However, this was clearly the first time they had met. Besides, this was senior sister's man, but now that Yang Ruolan pointed it out, she finally understood who this brother-in-law resembled. Chu Yang. Like the person she yearned for day and night. A little. Tai Butian's voice was as soft as a mosquito's buzz. Just a little? Yang Ruolan asked, unwilling to give up. This, a little? Tai Butian covered her face and lowered her head. Her swan-like beautiful neck was exposed. However, it was already red with embarrassment. Yang Ruolan became excited at once. Then tell me more about him. The more detailed, the better. Tai Butian was dumbfounded. She looked at Yang Ruolan pitifully and stuttered, Senior sister? Senior? This pitiful emperor felt embarrassed for the first time. She was too ashamed to show her face. She turned her head and looked at her son. Suddenly, she had a feeling. I can't wait to grab this little fellow and stuff him back into my belly. Under Yang Ruolan's hopeful and anxious gaze, Tai Butian's eyes were dull. She started to tell her story while stuttering. How did the two of you meet? What happened at that time? What did he say to you? How did the two of you have a child? One question after another came out like a cannonball. Tai Butian felt dizzy and lightheaded. She saw stars and was dazzled. This emperor, who could still remain calm in the face of tens of millions of soldiers, was now a living example of a stuttering patient. Furthermore, she was a stuttering patient who had committed a crime. She lowered her head and told the story one by one as if she was admitting her guilt. Yet, the judge was very interested in all the facts of the crime. He kept going over and over again, not getting tired of it. He was determined to get every single detail out of her. By the time he asked the last question, Tai Butian almost had a feeling, forget it if she fainted, I'm done. Are you done? Yang Ruolan sighed as if she hadn't had enough. Yes. Her Majesty's voice was like a mosquito's buzzing. That's all. Yes. He has suffered too much, poor child. Yang Ruolan's tears dripped down as she said this. Yang Ruolan obviously didn't dare to be completely sure. But she was vaguely certain in her heart. This king of Hell Chu is the real king of Hell Chu. The one she saw was definitely a fake. And, There was an 80% chance that the real king of Hell Chu was her lost son. As for what happened before coming to Iron Cloud, this, you have to ask Wu Qian. She's in the palace now, Tai Budian said hesitantly. Quickly betray someone and share my burden. Sister, I really can't take it anymore. How could I forget her? That girl is his senior sister. Yang Ruolan stood up excitedly. Her face was flushed red as she said, I'll go and find her now. Yes, is this? Senior, please do as you wish. Tai Budian felt that her tongue was no longer bent. She nodded and bowed as she said, Yes, you have a good rest. Yang Ruolan leaned over and looked at Tai Yang, who was sleeping soundly. Her gaze was completely different this time. I'll send you. Tai Budian hurriedly jumped up from the bed. She was attentive and careful to please her. Don't you just gave birth? You should rest well. Yang Ruolan hurriedly pressed her shoulder. She watched Yang Ruolan walk out with a whoosh. Tai Butian's face was red. She sat on the bed in a daze. She only felt that her whole body was alternating between hot and cold. After a long time, she suddenly moaned weakly and fell on the bed. She pulled the blanket over her head and covered herself with it. God, let me die. What will happen to this matter? Boo-hoo, what if it's true? What should I do? Chapter 587. NP Wu Qianqian sat quietly in her room. She hadn't slept for the past few days. My goal is in the heavens. This was what Chu Yang had said. So I want to go too. I won't let you see me, but I want to see you. To help you. Qianqian, when Tian is 1 month old, I will bring you back to the upper 3 heavens. There, I will recommend a great teacher to you. Your future is limitless. This was what Lan Meixian had said. Even a monarch or saint might be possible. Even a supreme martial artist would have to depend on your hard work. Don't let your talent go to waste. I won't let him down. The stronger I am, the more I can help him. You have to help me take a look at him. You have to help me help him. But don't let him know about Tai Yang. Tai Butian's voice sounded in her mind again. Wu Qianqian sighed. The two of them were really in the same boat. She still remembered the conversation she had with Tai Budian that day when Chu Yang had left. How many women in this world are willing to spend their whole lives with each other and grow old together? But until they die of old age, they have never truly given their feelings and love for each other. Although they have many children and grandchildren and are overflowing with kinship, true love is always in solitude. How many extraordinary men are there in this world? There are tens of billions of people and tens of billions of women in the heavens. How many of them are able to have a relationship with the man that they truly like and have truly conquered them? I've had enough. I'm content. I don't ask for anything else. If I force him to take responsibility, he will naturally take responsibility. But what's the point of taking responsibility like that? It's better to love one-sidedly. At least, I can still have some fantasies in my heart. Women all like strong men, especially strong men who are young and handsome, heroic and courageous. Which woman doesn't like them? Therefore, heroes are destined to be entangled in love and sin. But heroes may not be sentimental. Chu Yang is not a sentimental person. He's also not a playboy. He may look cunning and vicious, but deep down he is a very upright person. The so-called cunning, wretched, hooligan and scheming are all his methods and not his character. Everything he says has a purpose. Even when he did some ridiculous things, it was still shocking when he revealed his true motive. This kind of man would not be pestered or moved by her. His heart is like a piece of iron. Wu Qianqian still remembered the look in Tai Butian's eyes when she said, his heart is like a piece of iron. It was so strange and complicated. And pride. If his heart could be easily changed and he could be easily attracted by a beautiful woman, or even me, then would he still be Chu Yang? Will we still be in so much pain for him? Is a man who changes so easily worth our love? At that time, Wu Qianqian's last retort had left Tai Budian speechless for 3 days. Although there was no hope, although they didn't know, and although they had been tactfully rejected, the feelings of these two women towards Chu Yang didn't diminish in the slightest. She thought, pondered, deduced, and fantasized. Sometimes she cried, sometimes she laughed. I will go to the upper three heavens in a few days. Chu Yang will go to the upper three heavens sooner or later. So, I will wait for him in the upper three heavens. Wu Qianqian only woke up from her contemplation when she heard that Yang Ruolan had come to see her. She hurriedly received her. She was very suspicious. I don't know why Yang Ruolan is looking for me in the wee hours of the morning. Did something happen on Tai Butian's side? Wu Qianqian waited for Yang Ruolan to sit down before she cautiously asked, Senior, may I ask why you came in the wee hours of the night? It's nothing serious. Yang Ruolan's mood had calmed down. She still had desire, but she was inexplicably worried and fearful. Her intuition was the closest to King of Hell Chu this time. It was also the most hopeful. If it's not, she didn't know if she could withstand such a blow. Could she continue to muster the courage to search? I'm here to ask about your junior martial brother, the real King Hua of Chu. Yang Ruolan sorted out her thoughts and asked. Before he came to Iron Cloud, he was in the sect. If it's convenient for you, I would like to ask Miss Wu to talk with me. Chu Yang. Wu Qianqian's eyes lit up when she heard this name. Then she became suspicious. Why are you asking about Chu Yang? Yang Ruolan said, I don't have any other intentions. I don't have any evil intentions. I just want to know. Don't worry. Wu Qianqian nodded and said, I don't know what Senior wants to know. I didn't have much contact with Chu Yang when I was at Beyond the Heavens sect. Thinking about what Chu Yang had done in Beyond the Heavens sect, Wu Qianqian couldn't help but smile with her pair of crescent moon-like eyebrows. Then tell me what you know. Yang Ruolan looked at Wu Qianqian's expression and couldn't help but twitch the corners of her mouth. It seems this young king of Hell Chu has attracted a lot of love debts. This little Ni is obviously in love with him. I hadn't seen Chu Yang before 2 years ago. He used to be taciturn in the sect. He was somewhat dull. He didn't like to talk. He was the kind of person who would quickly vanish into the crowd, Wu Qianqian said while pondering. Oh, this opening was beyond Yang Ruolan's expectations. The future all-powerful king of Hell Chu was like this when he was young? Martial Uncle Meng of Purple Bamboo Garden was the most knowledgeable person in the older generation of Beyond the Heavens sect. He knew everything about the 3 sections. Moreover, he was the most indifferent and didn't care about anything. At that time, Father and the others evaluated Martial Uncle Meng's 3 younger brothers. They said that the eldest brother was mature and steady. He was resourceful. The second brother Chu Yang was taciturn. The third brother Tan Tan was the most unreliable person in Beyond the Heavens sect. Until that day, I followed Father's orders to go to Purple Bamboo Garden. Wu Qianqian's eyes flickered as she recalled the events of that day. I suddenly realized that this rumor was seriously untrue. The difference between the eldest brother Shi Qianshan and the second brother Chu Yang was like heaven and earth. Chu Yang's resourcefulness far surpassed Shi Qianshan's by more than 1-fold. Then, why is he usually taciturn? The conflict between Chu Yang and Shi Qianshan was like a fight between 2 ants in the eyes of an emperor-level expert like Yang Ruolan. However, Yang Ruolan's heart surged as she listened. She couldn't help but ask. I think this may have something to do with his past. Wu Qianqian smiled and said, Chu Yang, after all, thinks that he is an abandoned child. Since his heartless parents abandoned him, he knows about this matter. That's why he doesn't want to talk. Wu Qianqian smiled and said, in fact, this is human nature. It's not surprising. Generally speaking, a child with a pitiful past is always unwilling to talk. Chu Yang is smart and scheming. However, he is only a human after all. He is not a deity. So, he must have a stone in his heart. Wu Qianqian explained with a smile. She explained for Chu Yang, I won't allow anyone to say anything bad about Chu Yang. However, she didn't expect that her words would be such a blow to Yang Ruolan. Yang Ruolan's face suddenly turned pale. Her eyes were also filled with tears. Heartless parents abandoned me. Stone in his heart. Heartless parents. Yang Ruolan's body swayed. Her eyes were lifeless. He must hate his parents, right? Yang Ruolan smiled bitterly. Wu Qianqian was immersed in her memories. She didn't realize it and said, "Of course. There was once when he came to Iron Cloud from overseas. We were in the same room dealing with affairs. We had nothing to do that day. So, we talked about his past." "What did he say?" Yang Ruolan asked nervously. Wu Qianqian raised her head and looked at her in surprise. She seemed to be wondering why she was so nervous. She said, "When we were returning from the streets, we saw too many parents putting straw signs on their children's heads. They sold their children in order to survive. At that time, I said that these children were pitiful." Then Chiang said something. "What did he say?" Yang Ruolan asked anxiously. Wu Qianqian raised her head and recalled Chu Yang's tone and expression. After a long time, she said, "At that time, Chu Yang said, these children aren't pitiful because they still have some value. At least they know that their parents were forced to sell them. Even if they left their parents, they still had to pay a price. So they knew and didn't resist. The most miserable ones were those who were thrown away like trash when they were just born. Those were the most miserable ones. They didn't have the least bit of value. They didn't even have the qualifications to be sold." When he said this, I knew that he must have thought of his past. So, I didn't dare to say anything. Chu Yang sighed for a long time and asked me to buy all the children that day. Then, Butian Pavilion would pay for them and send them to school. That is the current Cloud Sky School. It would take in all the children who were forced to be sold. Even though Chu Yang has left, this work has never stopped. His Majesty and Butian Pavilion have been doing this all this time. Yang Ruolan did not hear what Wu Qianqian said after that. Her mind was buzzing, and she only replied with one sentence. "The most pitiful ones are those who were thrown away like trash when they were just born. That is the most pitiful. They didn't have the least bit of value. They didn't even have the qualifications to be sold." These words echoed repeatedly. Yang Ruolan only felt that her heart had also shattered into pieces. Her spirit had also been crushed over and over again, and had turned into dust. When Chu Yang said this, what was he thinking? Did his heart hurt? Did he hate? When he said this, his heart was also broken, right? A wandering life with a very cold heart. When she was writing this chapter, she suddenly remembered a poem, Lu Yu's Chao Kuo, "Youthful looks don't enter the field of youths, speechless only desolation." A wandering life with a very cold heart. At the end of the river, new poems and old dreams, lonely and resentful fragrance. Even if the spring breeze doesn't care, it also knows the Eastern Emperor. From that plum blossom's aloofness, I thought of our Chu Yang. Suddenly I felt some regret. So, I composed a poem for our king of Hell Chu. How can a wandering life be described? I travel alone with a sword. A cold light is proud and aloof, piercing through the mountains and rivers. Seeing through the world of mortals, cold and disdainful, what regrets do I have in this life? Chapter 588. Even if this wandering life could create an eternal legend, and could create an all-powerful king of Hell Chu, in the heart of a child, he still hoped that his parents would protect him from a young age. In the hearts of parents, wouldn't they rather give up such a legend to see their child grow up safely? Yang Ruolan's eyes were brimming with tears. Her heart was broken. I still remember the strange expression on Chu Yang's face when he said those words. Wu Qianhua tried her best to recall. She said, it was a kind of inferiority, resentment, self-pity, and a kind of disheartened heart. At that time I almost cried. Yang Ruolan also almost cried out. Poor child. At that time, I said that although your life was pitiful, your parents didn't expect that you would become an influential person when they abandoned you. If they knew, who knows how regretful they would be. Wu Qianqian's eyes were a little bleak. At that time, Chu Yang gritted his teeth and said, when I find them, if they really regret it and turn around to curry favor with me, I will kill them one by one. Wu Qianqian unconsciously imitated Chu Yang's tone when she said these words. The resentment in her tone was like dripping blood. Yang Ruolan trembled. She only felt a chill rising from the soles of her feet. It instantly spread throughout her body, and went straight to the top of her head. Yang Ruolan didn't remember the conversation after that. When she left, Yang Ruolan's mind became clear for a while. She asked, Qian, you grew up with him. Did you find that he had a purple jade pendant? Wu Qian didn't even think this time. She said, no. At least, I didn't see it. Then she understood something. She was somewhat flabbergasted. She said, Elder, are you suspecting that Chu Yang is your missing child? Yang Ruolan left dejectedly. Her feet were high and her feet were low. It was as if she was sleepwalking. When she asked about the purple jade pendant, Wu Qian didn't even think about it. These two words gave her a heavy blow. In terms of understanding of Chu Yang, no one could compare to Wu Qian. But Wu Qian said no. Isn't it? Isn't it? Yang Ruolan walked out. She faced the night wind. Her heart was in a mess. Suddenly, he felt that this matter was full of fog. After a long while, she began to comb her hair carefully. The king of Hell Chu I saw wasn't the king of Hell Chu of the lower three heavens. The king of Hell Chu looked exactly like his son, and Tai Badian said that the king of Hell Chu looked exactly like her husband. Suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind. He recalled Chu Fei Ling's words, my sworn younger brother looks very similar to me. Yang Ruolan's body trembled. She suddenly stood still. She remembered that she had doubted him and said, he's only known you for 2 days, why would he give you so many good things? Could it be a ploy? Or do they have any ulterior motives? Yang Ruolan suddenly burst into tears as she recalled the conversation between the husband and wife. Could it be him? Could it be that he found out about her identity at that time, so he gave her husband so many good things? And he even gave me a sword? After all, even if they were sworn brothers, they wouldn't be so generous after only 2 days of contact, right? It should be known that those things were more precious than heavenly treasures. Each of them could change a person's fate. But if it was really him, why didn't he admit it? Since he had given so many things, it meant that there was no hatred in his heart. Why didn't he admit it? Yang Ruolan's heart was in extreme pain. She suddenly squatted down, covered her face with her hands, and burst into tears. Yang Ruolan finally returned to her residence at dawn. She woke up Chu Fei Ling, who was snoring. She didn't say anything, and used a wet and cold towel to wipe her husband's face. Chu Fei Ling immediately opened his eyes with vigor. He angrily said, "What are you doing?" "Quickly!" Yang Ruolan's expression was very strange. She said with some fear and trepidation, Do you still remember your sworn younger brother? You told me about him?" "Of course I remember my brother," Chu Fei Ling said inexplicably. "What does your sworn younger brother look like? What did you talk about when you were together? Tell me everything in detail," Yang Ruolan urged. She hadn't slept for a night, but she was still full of energy. Her eyes were shining when she asked this question. Her mouth was moving up and down. She was obviously very moved. Chu Fei Ling was stunned. It had been so long. How could she still remember? Why did his wife suddenly ask about this matter at this time? "Tell me quickly. What kind of person is your sworn younger brother?" Yang Ruolan bit her lips when she said the words sworn younger brother. She sighed heavily. She had a feeling in her heart, if it's true, then my husband has really made a big joke of himself this time. Well, my sworn younger brother is naturally very handsome and confident. Chu Fei Ling's spirit was lifted. He smiled easily and said, "That guy is young, but he's really a rare talent. He's courageous and knowledgeable. He's brave and resourceful. He's the first young hero I've ever seen. None of the young talents of the big clans of the upper three heavens can compare to him." Chu Fei Ling felt that something was wrong as he spoke. Why is my wife's expression so strange today? In the past, Yang Ruolan would listen to him with a smile when he talked about this matter, but she would be more or less perfunctory. After all, she hadn't seen him in person. But today was different. Yang Ruolan had a satisfied smile on her lips. She didn't seem to get tired of hearing him boast about his sworn brother, especially when she heard those exaggerated adjectives. Her eyes were shining when she heard them. It seemed that even if he said more, it would be fine. I'm willing to listen to such an expression. Moreover, she looked very proud, very proud. Are you done? Yang Ruolan asked. Is that all? Chu Feiling felt dizzy. He stretched out his hand to touch his wife's forehead. Are you okay today? Yang Ruolan slapped his hand away and said, Is there more? No. Yang Ruolan's eyes showed signs of anger. You and your sworn younger brother traveled together for several days. You faced life and death together and killed strong enemies together. Your sworn younger brother also gave you so many good things. You've been friends for such a long time. Why didn't you talk normally? Chu Feiling was confused. What talk? It's the conversation between the two of you. What did you say? What did you talk about? What did he say? Didn't he say anything about his facial expressions? Yang Ruolan asked while clenching her teeth. Oh my God. Chu Feiling jumped up. How can I remember all of this? So much time has passed. Even a deity can't remember, right? Besides, what's the point of investigating this? My sworn younger brother is really a man. You must remember something, right? Who asked you if he was a man or a woman? Do you think that I have the leisure to be jealous of you at this time? Yang Ruolan's eyes became dangerous. Don't tell me that you've forgotten everything? He was such a good kid. His kindness to you was as high as the sky and as deep as the earth. How can you forget everything? I think. Chu Feiling raised his hands in surrender. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. What a good kid. What kid? He's my sworn brother. You can't say that even if you're my sister-in-law. You've messed up the seniority. What a scandal. But how could he dare to say these words in front of his wife? Let me remind you, Yang Ruolan saw that her husband was being perfunctory. So, she said, was your sworn younger brother ecstatic when you became sworn brothers? Or, did you coincide with each other? No way. Chu Feiling immediately recalled. That little boy seemed to have suffered a great shock at that time. He stuttered a little. Speaking of which, I was a little presumptuous when I brought it up. No wonder he couldn't accept it. How much of a shock? Stuttering? You're a pig head. Yang Ruolan fiercely scolded him in her heart. Then she hurriedly asked, Do you remember the situation at that time? Of course. Chu Feiling smiled and said, At that time I said, It's rare that you and I hit it off so well. Why don't we become sworn brothers? Then that little brother was stunned. That guy actually said that I was a big shot. Then I said, Are you looking down on me? So he didn't know what to do. Then Chu Feiling spoke and gestured and recounted the scene at that time. This matter had left a deep impression in his heart. Moreover, he had half forced himself to become sworn brothers with that guy. So how could he forget? That's it. I almost pressed him down to kowtow. That guy looked as if he was in a dream even after he finished kowtowing. His face was also very ugly. No, it was a very pleasantly surprised expression. This is it. Chu Feiling recalled how his sworn brother had looked when he had lost his soul. So, he couldn't help but laugh out loud. Yang Ruolan held her forehead with one hand. She sighed deeply in her heart. Ugly face? Lost his soul? He was forced by his own father to become sworn brothers with his own father. How can he look good? You would have fainted if you were in his place. No. You would have already fainted. Yang Ruolan could have killed herself if she hadn't been sure that this was her son after hearing this. She couldn't help but look at her husband with some pity in her eyes. This poor guy is still in a dream. But he's saying that others are dreaming, and then? Yang Ruolan asked, You must have had a lot to say after becoming sworn brothers, right? Yes. Chu Feiling sighed. You also know that the matter of that year has been pressing down on my heart like a mountain. It's making it hard for me to breathe. I don't dare to talk about it in front of my father-in-law or in my own home. Especially in front of you. I had a belly full of bitterness that day. So, I naturally had to tell my brother about that day. We talked about that snowy night 18 years ago. It's also the thing that we regret our entire lives. Chapter 589. Chu Feiling was stunned. He stuttered. Can't I say it? Who said I can't? Yang Ruolan glared at him. Why are you so stupid? What's next? What next? Chu Failing was really confused today. He was about to break down. Wife, what are you talking about? You're very strange today. I'm going crazy. Yang Ruolan glared at him frantically. She was fuming. This bastard, he actually started to interrupt when we were talking about the most important part. Do you know that I'm burning with anxiety now? She looked up at the sky speechlessly and muttered, I'm really strange now. Why did I marry you in the first place? Chu Feiling's expression turned gloomy. He let out a long sigh and said sadly, You're right. If you hadn't married me back then, your life would have been much happier than it is now. Speaking of which, I've implicated you. It's all because of the internal strife of my Chu clan that you've suffered for so many years. Yang Ruolan's eyes turned white. She slumped down on the bed. She was extremely speechless. She wanted to cry, but had no tears to shed. She pleaded, Damn it. I asked you to continue. Go on. Chu Failing felt a wave of depression rise from his heart. He muttered in his heart, I've never seen anyone being addicted to listening to their self-reflection. But this matter is really a disaster for my clan. So, he had no choice but to continue the examination with a bitter face. For so many years, if it wasn't for our Chu clan, you would be so happy now. Rulan, marrying me is really hard on you. Chu Feiling's last sentence was filled with sincerity and emotion. In these 18 years, every time Yang Ruolan was in a bad mood because she missed her son, Chu Failing would reflect on himself when he had no other choice. He would talk until he was in tears. Yang Ruolan's sadness would disappear without a trace, and she would comfort him instead. This trick worked every time. It had become a routine in these 18 years. Chu Failing had practiced self-reflection to the point where he could speak eloquently in order to coax his wife. But this trick obviously didn't work today. Yang Ruolan jumped up and strangled Chu Failing's neck. You pig! Are you trying to anger me to death? You've been using this trick to coax me for 18 years. I'm afraid of hurting you, so I've been feigning civility every time. Now, you're actually using the same trick again. Do you really want to anger me to death? Yang Ruolan was furious. This pig, does he even know what he's saying? Chu Failing was completely stunned. So, his trick had been seen through long ago? He couldn't help but feel embarrassed as he said, Wife, you're so good. You haven't exposed me for so many years. How did she expose me today? Go on. Yang Ruolan was infuriated by him. Her heart felt as if 25 kittens had drilled into it, and 100 claws were scratching at it. Haven't you been listening to it for 18 years? Chu Failing was so depressed that he wanted to die. You just said that you were going to die from anger. What do you want me to do? Yang Ruolan looked at her husband's aggrieved and gloomy face. So, she hammered her head against the quilt in a dejected manner. She resisted the urge to vomit blood. Then, she used an extremely gentle voice to guide him patiently. Didn't you just say that you and your sworn brother had a long talk after you became sworn brothers? Am I right? Chu Failing nodded earnestly. Then, can you continue to speak? Go on, tell me what you two talked about, okay? Yang Ruolan looked at him with eyes that seemed to be spitting fire. She was so angry that her chest was about to explode. Then, she suddenly roared, Okay. There was a buzzing sound, and the guards and palace maids in the vicinity of the palace rolled their eyes at the same time. They had fainted because of this roar. How could these people bear the roar of an emperor-level expert? Chu Failing was the first to bear the brunt of it. He also felt as if a bell and a drum were ringing in his ears for a while. Then he came to his senses and said with a bitter smile, So, this is it? I thought. Speak quickly. Yang Ruolan interrupted him without any trace of politeness. Then she sat upright and still. Her body was slightly bent forward, and she assumed an extremely serious posture of listening. This gave Chu Failing a fright. It was like this at that time. I talked about the regretful things of the past, and my heart was filled with endless sadness. I had no choice but to praise my sworn younger brother when I said this. He actually felt the same way as me at that time. In fact, he even cried with me. He's such a pure and innocent young man. Chu Failing sighed with emotion. He was able to empathize with other people's experiences to such an extent. This is enough to show how kind-hearted my sworn younger brother is. The corner of Yang Ruolan's mouth twitched. She thought, you're talking about his personal experiences that he doesn't know about. How can he not cry? And you're still praising him for being kind-hearted? You're going too far from the truth. She wanted to laugh when she thought of this. But she sighed deeply in an instant. Then she thought of another matter, and her heart suddenly throbbed with pain. She felt extremely sour. My sworn younger brother cried with me. It turns out that my poor child also cried at that time. I turned around after I finished speaking, and saw that my sworn younger brother's face was full of tears. He was sobbing. I was startled at that time. A warm smile appeared on Chu Failing's face as he said, my sworn younger brother cried and said that he was very moved. Yang Ruolan turned her face away. She gnashed her teeth, and her face became somewhat distorted. She thought, I was very moved. I was so moved that I wanted to strangle you to death. Did he give you a gift before you became sworn brothers? Or after you became sworn brothers? Yang Ruolan sighed and asked this question that she was very concerned about. My sworn younger brother gave me a gift after we became sworn brothers. Chu Failing recalled the scene of that day and became fascinated. He said with a smile, my sworn younger brother is really a good person. It's settled. It's definitely him. Yang Ruolan's eyes flowed with tears. But a sweet smile bloomed at the corners of her mouth. She felt as if a big stone had been lifted from her heart. How is your sworn younger brother a good person? Chu Failing's face was brimming with gratitude. He affectionately said, before we became sworn brothers, I had told him that his sister-in-law, that is, you had a problem with chest pain. Then he immediately took out an elixir and asked me to treat your chest pain. That was a heavenly elixir. Yang Ruolan only felt a warm current flowing through her heart. Her whole body had never felt so comfortable before. Her chest felt warm, and the blood in her body seemed to be flowing rapidly. She couldn't help but shed 2 drops of happy tears. She thought in a daze, so my illness was cured by my sworn brother because he missed me, his mother? Her heart felt sour, sweet, bitter, and tired in an instant. She wanted to cry out loud, and cry until she was hovering between life and death. Then, my sworn younger brother asked about my cultivation. Then, he gave me 2 exceptional elixirs that were even better than those elixirs. They were elixirs that could help us advance by a big realm. And he especially told me that you and my sister-in-law should each have one. My sworn younger brother seriously told me these words for a long time. He also told me to take one on the spot. He guarded me and I advanced smoothly. Chu Failing said with satisfaction. My sworn brother was afraid that our strength was too weak, and we would get killed if we weren't careful. So, he gave it to us. These 2 elixirs were my sworn brother's filial piety. Sister-in-law? Yang Ruolan finally reacted. She looked at Chu Failing with eyes that seemed as if they were about to spew fire. Chu Failing was confused. He looked at her in astonishment. What's wrong? Yang Ruolan stared at him for a long time. It seemed as if she wanted to eat him alive. Then she waved her hand weakly. It's nothing. You can continue. You're very strange today. So strange that it's inexplicable. Chu Failing muttered. Then, my sworn younger brother saw that my saber was damaged in the battle. So, he simply gave me another saber. Then he gave me a sword. He said that it was for Madam, it was for you? I even reprimanded him at that time. Reprimanded him? Yang Ruolan's beautiful eyes opened wide. Why? He stuttered at that time. He said that it was for Madam. Chu Failing shook his head and laughed. He calmly said, Humph. He and I have already become sworn brothers. So, how can he still call you Madam? He should have called you sister-in-law. So, I sternly reprimanded him. I reprimanded him until he was sweating profusely. As an elder brother, he needs to act like one. Yang Ruolan opened her mouth wide. She looked at him in shock. It seemed as if she was looking at a non-human. You're really something? He doesn't dare to call you that. But you force him to change it. And you still act so dignified. At this moment, Yang Ruolin looked at Chu Feiling with a gaze full of admiration. He's worthy of worship. I'm afraid that you're the only one in the whole world who has become sworn brothers with your own son. No, not only in the whole world, but also in the whole world since ancient times. It's absolutely unprecedented. You're awesome. Yang Ruolan raised her thumb and stuck it under Chu Feiling's nose. You're awesome. Yang Ruolan's heart was filled with happiness and satisfaction at this moment. She knew that her son had unknowingly given her so many good things. Each of them was ingenious. Yang Ruolan's heart was overflowing with happiness. So, she was in the mood to joke with Chu Feiling. That's natural. Chu Feiling solemnly said, my sworn younger brother is a genius. But he still has to show some seniority in front of me. Don't flatter yourself. Go on. A sweet smile hung on Yang Ruolan's face. Chu Feiling's eyes widened as he looked at her. And his heart almost skipped a beat. So, he hastily restrained his mind and continued to speak. Then, my sworn younger brother gave us 2 bottles of medicine that can conceal our aura. He said that it can make others unable to see our true strength. Chu Feiling sighed. He was somewhat ashamed. I was too ashamed to show my face at that time. My sworn younger brother gave us so many treasures in addition to the mysterious Yang Jade core. So, I immediately took my leave. My sworn younger brother is kind-hearted. He comforted me before he left. He even praised our son. Chu Feiling repeatedly shook his head. He was obviously very satisfied with his sworn younger brother. Praised our son? Yang Ruolan's small mouth was half open. She was dumbstruck. I'm very ashamed. Cough cough. I felt that the suspense I left behind yesterday's update was somewhat unkind. Cough cough cough. So, I worked overtime all night. I wrote a chapter until 3:30 in the morning. Then, I couldn't take it anymore. So, I went to sleep. I'll explode today. I'll ask for monthly votes first. The monthly votes are being chased very tightly. I need your help. Please don't blame me for urging you to get your recommendation votes. But, our recommendation votes are too few. The new books in the same period have more than 1 million recommendation votes. And we haven't even passed 500,000. Chapter 590. Yes, he comforted me at that time. He said that our son will be found. Maybe he is already a young hero. Chu Feiling chuckled and said, I said at that time. I said that I would be satisfied if Shao Quan could be 1/10 or 2/10 of my sworn brother. My sworn brother immediately comforted me, saying that our son must be very promising. Moreover, he's handsome, confident, and elegant. He's young and promising, and has a demeanor and temperament. Young ladies will be dizzy and disoriented when they see him. Chu Feiling smiled and said, I knew that he was comforting me. But it is strange that my mental illness has improved a lot after that time. Yang Ruolan opened her eyes wide. She opened her small mouth. She was petrified on the spot. Her eyebrows twitched for a long time. The corners of her mouth twitched. Then, the look in her eyes became even more strange. She finally came to her senses. She looked at her husband as if she was looking at an immortal. She couldn't help but smile. Your son must be very promising? Yes, he must be very promising. He turned the entire lower 3 heavens around by himself. If this isn't promising, then what is? Your son must be handsome, confident, and elegant, right? He is young and promising. He also has a demeanor and temperament? This point should not be wrong. Young ladies will be dizzy and disoriented when they see him? I absolutely believe this. Just look at Wu Qianqian and Tai Bu Tian. These 2 girls are from Tianxiang. The Empress had willingly given birth to a child for him. If that wasn't enough to make her dizzy, then what was? It's just that these words coming from his own mouth are a little too funny, right? The smile on Yang Ruolan's face gradually spread. It gradually spread to her entire face. She laughed silently. Even if it's all true, there's still one more thing to add. Your son's skin is also extraordinarily thick. Your sworn brother is very interesting. Yang Ruolan looked at her husband with a faint smile. That little one is indeed not bad. Chu Fei Ling felt honored when his sworn brother was praised. So, he happily replied, Fei Ling, there is something I think I have to tell you. Yang Ruolan let out a long sigh. What is it? Yes, our son was lost 18 years and months ago. Yang Ruolan said slowly. Ah. Chu Fei Ling sighed. This matter is really worrying. Yang Ruolan ignored him and said, It is said that King of Hell Chu was an abandoned child. 18 years ago, King of Hell Chu's master, Meng Chao Ran, picked him up. Chu Fei Ling's eyes widened. You also know that Her Majesty the Empress of the Imperial Palace, my junior martial sister, has just given birth to a child. And that child belongs to King of Hell Chu. Yang Ruolan slowly said, That child's appearance is said to be exactly the same as King of Hell Chu's. And junior sister said that King of Hell Chu's appearance is 80% similar to yours. Chu Fei Ling opened his mouth wide. From this, I can conclude that the King of Hell Chu I found the last time was a fake. And I haven't even seen the real King of Hell Chu, Yang Ruolan snorted. Chu Fei Ling's face darkened. The sworn brother you met in Shangan is also surnamed Chu, and his name is also Chu Yang. He has the same name as King of Hell Chu, Yang Ruolan said slowly. Hey! Chu Fei Ling's face turned green. So, we can conclude that your sworn brother is King of Hell Chu. Yang Ruolan pressed on. Yes. Cold sweat seeped out of Chu Fei Ling's forehead. You said that you and your sworn brother are fated to meet. His appearance is 80% similar to yours. Yang Ruolan looked at her husband fiercely. Chu Fei Ling's whole body became hot. He felt that his vision was a little blurry, and his mind was a little muddled. You and your sworn brother became friends for 2 days. And he gave you the mysterious Yang Jade Core and a rare elixir. He also gave you 2 divine weapons, which are rare even in the entire heavens. Moreover, your sworn brother still remembers every word you said. He also remembers your wife's illness. And he doesn't forget to give your wife a share of the good things he gives you. But you and your second brother, who was born from the same mother, grew up naked together, and only wanted to kill you. Your sworn brother gave you so much in 2 days. He gave it all to you as if he was moving house. And he was afraid that you wouldn't want it. I find it strange. Why didn't he give it to anyone else apart from you and me? Chu Fei Ling's face turned black and green. He should dig a hole and bury himself if he couldn't understand what Yang Ruolan was implying. Your sworn brother is shrewd and resourceful. He's the #1 person of the younger generation. He's ruthless and decisive. But he's so devoted to a person he met by chance. Is this possible? If he was really so careless, who knows how many times he would have died by now? How could he be worthy of your praise? Doesn't he know that an ordinary man's wealth is his own ruin? Even the best of brothers can't help but be tempted by their own interests, right? What's more, he took out all the peerless treasures. Wasn't he worried that you'd snatch them from him? Did you kill him? How could he trust you so much? And your sworn brother is so witty and resourceful. Why did he cry after you told him a story? Why are his feelings so fragile? It's only been 2 days, and your brother's feelings haven't even been tested. And he gave you everything. Yang Ruolan became angrier as she spoke. Chu Fei Ling. Are you a pig? Chu Fei Ling was sweating profusely. He was in an extremely sorry state. Even his eyebrows were covered with sparkling and translucent beads of sweat. The beads of sweat dripped down his eyelashes and into his open mouth. But he didn't seem to feel anything. These are those, son? Chu Fei Ling muttered. What do you think? Yang Ruolan glared at him with hatred. Oh my God! Chu Fei Ling sat on the ground, and his face immediately turned as red as a pig's liver. His whole body was sweating profusely. He was so ashamed that he couldn't show his face. The more he thought about it, the more likely it was. Well, it wasn't a possibility. It was a fact. I really admire you. You've been looking for your son for 18 years. You've been so anxious. Now that you've finally met him, you've become sworn brothers with him. Moreover, your son isn't willing. But, as an old woman, you actually forced your son to become sworn brothers with you. You even pressed your son's head down and made him kowtow to you. Yang Ruolan shook her head and sighed. Chu Feiling, I really admire you. How heartless must you be to do such a thing? Becoming sworn brothers with your own son, forcing your son to call you big brother, and forcing your son to call his mother sister-in-law. Chu Feiling, my dear husband, you're the only one in the entire heavenly layer. As Yang Ruolan continued to reprimand him, even she found it a little funny. Chu Feiling opened his eyes in a daze. His face turned ghastly pale, and then it turned into a pig's liver. Then, it turned into a wretched green color. His face was like a dragon. Finally, he covered his face. He groaned and fell to the ground. It's over. It's over. It's over. It's so embarrassing. Such a joke. Chu Feiling felt that he would laugh himself to death if it happened to someone else. But it happened to him. This was the most embarrassing thing in the world. Finally, that little bastard. That bastard. Why didn't he say? Chu Feiling jumped up. He was furious and his face was ferocious. He made me such a big joke. I'm afraid it's not that he didn't say it, but that you didn't give him a chance. Yang Ruolan said lightly. Chu Feiling recalled the scene at that time and muttered to himself regretfully, no wonder he hesitated several times, but was forced by me to become sworn brothers without stopping for a moment. Yang Ruolan was furious when she heard this. She pinched his ear hard. You still have the face to say it? If you gave him a chance to speak. I'm afraid my son would have returned home long ago. It's all your fault. You pig. Yang Ruolan's heart was bleeding when she thought of how she should have reunited with her son long ago. She should have been muddle-headed and delayed for such a long time. Don't you know that my son hasn't returned home for 18 years? But I haven't even seen my own son as his mother. You stupid pig, you actually said? Even if he became sworn brothers, he should have said it. How important is it to acknowledge one's ancestors? Chu Feiling's face turned red as he shouted. But he stopped halfway. His voice became softer and softer. He became more and more guilty and lacked confidence. Yang Ruolan was furious. Bastard. You've already cut the Gordian knot and become sworn brothers with him. How would he dare to say it? Won't you skin him alive if he says it? But Chu Feiling said one word. Then he couldn't continue. He let out a long sigh of regret. He hugged his head and pulled his hair. Then he squatted down. He didn't say anything. Yang Ruolan was speechless. Both husband and wife were silent. This can't be spread out. Chu Feiling suddenly remembered. He hurriedly grabbed his wife's hand and begged, if you say it out, I'll die. Yang Ruolan was angry and amused at the same time. She shook off his hand. Do you think this can be hidden? At least, you can't hide it from father, right? But Chu Feiling was like a deflated balloon. Master is born with a big mouth. If he knows, it means that the Chu clan knows. If the Chu clan knows, it means that the Yang clan knows as well. That means that the upper three heavens knows. But I don't want to live anymore. Oomph. Yang Ruolan was still angry. Chu Feiling lost his temper and was stunned for a while. Then he gritted his teeth and said, when that little bastard returns, if I don't spank his ass into 8 pieces, You'll what? You'll what? Yang Ruolan sneered. She looked at him and asked, You'll what? Let me tell you, Chu Feiling. When my son comes back, we owe him 18 years. 18 years. If you dare to lay a finger on him, I'll fight you to the death. Chu Feiling was completely defeated. He fell to the ground and said weakly, I'm just saying, you can't even say it. Yang Ruolan shouted. Chapter 591. Do I need you to tell me that? Yang Ruolan rolled her eyes at him. She snorted coldly, but a happy and satisfied smile had already appeared on her face. Chu Feiling immediately stood up and forgot about his embarrassing incident. He walked around excitedly. So, I have a grandson? Our Chu clan has another descendant? Ha! This is really double happiness. He rubbed his hands and was somewhat impatient. Oh yes, my grandson, I haven't seen him careful. Rulin, let's go to junior sister now. No, can I still call her junior sister? Do you want to call her sister-in-law? Yang Rulin asked teasingly. Chu Feiling's old face suddenly turned red. He was so embarrassed that he didn't know what to do. He begged, can you not mention this matter? Yang Rulin snorted coldly. She frowned and said, it seems that there's no big problem if you want to acknowledge your son. But if you want to acknowledge your grandson, it's very difficult. You still need to consider, this matter can't be rushed. Chu Feiling wondered. But isn't it because of your good son? He doesn't even have a status now. He doesn't even know that she's a woman. How much has she endured? She's a dignified supreme emperor, and she's still a virgin. She even gave birth to his child without a word. Yang Rulin sighed and was somewhat melancholy, and this child's status has been confirmed since he was born. The emperor of the empire, the only heir of Iron Cloud. How can we? But even if he's the emperor, he still has to acknowledge his ancestors, right? Chu Feiling was dumbfounded. My grandson can't always be surnamed Iron, right? The point is, my junior sister doesn't want to acknowledge this relative. Yang Rulin sighed helplessly. She doesn't want Chu Yang to know. She sacrificed her chastity and her future to save your son's life. She gave birth to your son's child. How can you snatch her heart away like this? Chu Feiling blurted out, won't it be fine if you let my son marry her? Your son still doesn't know that she's a woman. Even if your son is willing to marry her, she may not be willing to marry him. Yang Ruolan had seen through everything. She sighed. Besides, she's the Iron Cloud Emperor's only successor. If she were to marry, what would she do with such a huge empire? This is a responsibility. If it were you, would you be able to abandon it? Chu Feiling lowered his head and said in despair, are we just going to watch as my son, surnamed Tai? Yang Ruolan frowned and said, these matters must be dealt with step by step. You mustn't be too hasty. Otherwise, it'll backfire and we'll be done for. Chu Feiling could only suppress his emotions. Both husband and wife were thinking about something. But before they could look for Tai Budian came looking for them herself. Chu Feiling and Yang Rulin sat in their chairs and looked at Tai Budian, who was sitting opposite them. Senior sister, I'm sorry for being so presumptuous. You won't be surprised, right? Tai Butian's expression was indifferent as she sat down leisurely. Then, she slowly raised her head and looked at Yang Rulin calmly. Her expression was natural and calm, displaying the demeanor of an emperor. The fluster and shyness from last night, as well as her ladylike demeanor, were nowhere to be seen. Yang Rulin's heart sank. The moment Tai Budian called her senior sister, Yang Rulin felt something in her heart. Seeing her calm and composed demeanor, Yang Rulin knew what she was going to say almost without Tai Budian saying anything. Junior sister? What's the matter? Yang Rulin stammered. Yes, I've specially come to report something to senior sister. Tai Budian smiled calmly and said, Tai Yang is my son. I'm Tai Yang's father. This is the first thing. The second thing is that I don't want Chu Yang to know about this. Perhaps senior sister still doesn't know that not only does Chu Yang not know that I'm a girl, but there's also a girl in Chu Yang's heart whom he loves wholeheartedly. Yang Rulin's eyes widened. Tai Budian continued, for the woman in his heart, Chu Yang has never shown his true appearance to anyone in Iron Cloud. Wu Qianqian's beauty can be said to be unparalleled in the world. I'm confident that even among the daughters of the aristocratic families in the upper three heavens, there are only a handful who can compare to Wu Qianqian's beauty. Tai Budian said lightly, and Chu Yang is with her all the time. Wu Qianqian is deeply in love with him, but Chu Yang has never made any promises. Or rather, he's never been tempted at all. She smiled slightly and said, if Chu Yang knows about Tai Yang's existence, he'll definitely be very conflicted. And it's very likely that he'll create a tragedy. To me, to Chu Yang, and to the woman in Chu Yang's heart, it'll be a tragedy. In serious cases, it can even ruin a lifetime of happiness. Because Chu Yang is too responsible a man. Although he looks cunning on the surface, the righteousness and persistence in his heart are unimaginable. And I can feel that his feelings for the woman he loves have already surpassed life and death. He's already disregarding everything. And I don't want such a tragedy to happen. So, I don't want Chu Yang to know. Whether it's for myself, for Chu Yang, for that innocent woman, or even for the Chu clan. Chu Yang can't know about it. Tai Budian sat upright. Her slender figure was calm and steady. She said softly, "So, please give me your blessings." Without waiting for Chu Failing and his wife to reply, she hurriedly continued, "I can allow, and even welcome, you to visit Tai Yang often. You can even stay here every day. You can even take on the surname Chu. But in the lower three heavens in Iron Cloud, he can only be called Tai Yang. He's from Iron Cloud. My only request is that you don't let Chu Yang know. I only ask you to promise me this one thing. That's all I've said. Senior sister, please consider it carefully. I'll take my leave now." Tai Budian smiled and stood up. She bowed deeply and walked out. She left in a carefree and decisive manner. Her fluttering figure disappeared outside the door. Yang Ruolin and Chu Failing were dumbfounded. They looked at each other. Tai Budian, this woman's persistence and perseverance were simply shocking. Her independence and stubbornness were something that the couple had never seen before in their lives. "What should we do?" Yang Ruolin slumped weakly on the chair. "What should we do?" Chu Failing sighed deeply. "When our grandson is 1 month old, we'll immediately go to the lower three heavens to look for him. But this matter, Yang Ruolin said despondently, "should we tell him or not? Let's take it one step at a time." Chu Failing sighed again. The couple sat opposite each other and sighed one after another. It was as if they had sighed all the sighs they could today. Tai Butian's words had already blocked all of their paths of hope and all of their paths. Blocked all of them. Her words were very obvious. "If you insist that this is your child, I'll admit it. You can visit him at any time. You can even stay here. Even if the entire Chu clan comes to see this child, I'm willing. But my only request is that you don't tell Chu Yang." Tai Budian slowly returned to her bedroom. She had just sat down when her face suddenly flushed red. Then, a mouthful of fresh blood suddenly flowed out from the corner of her lips. She took out a pure white silk handkerchief and covered her mouth. She coughed slightly. A large patch of blood immediately appeared on the silk handkerchief. Then, as if she had lost all her strength, she sat down on her throne. After a long time, she got up gently and walked to the side of the bed. The baby on the bed seemed to have sensed his mother's arrival. He started to struggle and dance. A cute smile appeared on his face, as if he longed for his mother's embrace. Tai Budian looked at him. Her gaze gradually became as gentle as spring water. She reached out her hands lovingly and carefully held her son in her arms. She looked at this tender face in a daze. The baby babbled as if he was hungry. Tai Budian laughed softly. "Little fellow, you only know how to eat." She unbuttoned her clothes and carefully placed her nipples on the baby's mouth. Tai Yang immediately opened his little mouth and started to swallow in big mouthfuls. He looked at his mother with his black eyes as he ate. His little face was full of happiness. Tai Butian's heart was instantly filled with pure maternal love. After a long time, she lifted her gaze from her son's face. She looked somewhat despondently at the void and muttered, "I love you." "But how can I destroy your happiness?" Her voice was faint and faint. It seemed to have melted in the wind as it left her lips. Then, it turned into a sigh. 3 days. During this period of time, it was like a raging fire. Mo Tianji took advantage of the destruction of the Meng clan to spread the news. Countless terrifying rumors flew out from the Mo clan, Dong clan, and other big clans. For example, Ao Xie Yun has died in the hands of the O clan, Black Devil clan, and other clans. Even his bones are not left behind. These clans were ambitious. They wanted to destroy the Ao clan and replace it. The Jianghu was in chaos. The 3 days were in chaos. At the same time, the invisible falcons of the Xie clan were also coming and going. They were sending messages to the Ji clan, Mo clan, Dong clan, Luo clan, and Gu clan. Chu Yang had returned. Dong Wushang, Luo Kadi, GMO, and the others had returned. And they were now at the Xie clan. Ao Xie Yun had been rescued by Chu Yang and the others. He had also returned to the Ao clan. Chu Yang first passed this news to Mo Tianji. While waiting, Chu Yang said to Ao Xie Yun, "The news of your survival. I think it's better not to leak out for the time being. Just spread the news that the big clans are hunting you down. That's good enough." Ao Xie Yun nodded deeply. "I also think so. The Ao clan has been too comfortable these years. They also need to see blood to sharpen themselves. If the clan knows that I've returned safely, I'm afraid that countless elders of the Ao clan will cancel their revenge plans." He frowned. "Moreover, these clans have become malignant tumors of the 3 heavens. They must be eliminated." Chu Yang nodded. No one knew that Ao Xie Yun had followed them back to the Xie clan. Chu Yang had concealed this news from the beginning. In this regard, he and Mo Tianji's plan was undoubtedly the same. Sure enough, the invisible falcon flew over a few days later. It brought an extremely urgent news from Mo Tianji. Duke Xie's safety must not be leaked. The handwriting was very messy. It could be seen that Mo Tianji had hurriedly written these words the moment he had received the news. And he had immediately sent it out. Chu Yang was absolutely sure that this invisible falcon wouldn't stay in Mo Tianji's hands for more than a breath. Third update. Requesting recommendation votes. Brothers and sisters, yesterday's recommendation votes were 7,000. Today, it's less than 3,500. Chapter 592. Great minds think alike. Chu Yang faintly smiled. Then he began to ponder. The Xie clan's clan lord, Xie Guang'an, sat opposite him. His complexion was heavy as he said, "The entire 3 heavens have become a pot of paste. They're ready to strike at any time. But Mo Tianji has seriously requested that our clans mustn't make the first move." He sighed and said, "This is somewhat torturous. We can't do anything apart from listening to the news every day. It's very uncomfortable. We obviously can't make the first move. Only Ao clan can make the first move in order to set off the biggest turmoil in the 3 heavens." Chu Yang didn't evade the taboo in front of Ao Xie Yun. He said, "I'm afraid that we'll be hit with a bucket of shit if we make the first move. That would be very detrimental to our plan." Xie Guang'an sighed. "I don't know this, but I feel oppressed by this. But that's Mo Tianji's plan. And we have our own plan." Chu Yang nodded. His eyes emitted a crazy murderous intention as he said, "Xie clan is located in the north. So, it and O clan are the only 2 clans in this vast area. O clan is close to the empty city now. So, we might as well eradicate the O clan first. Then we'll sweep away any worries in the future." Xie Guang'an was startled. He said, "How can this be? Didn't you say that we can't make the first move?" "Yes, who said that we can make the first move?" Chu Yang strangely looked at him. Then, Xie Guang'an stroked his beard. He was somewhat perplexed. He stared at Chu Yang. He wanted to say, "Aren't you contradicting yourself?" However, he didn't say it out loud after he thought for a while. "You can't make a move on Xie clan. But you didn't say that you can't make a move on our heavenly armament pavilion." Chu Yang mischievously smiled. "O clan ambushed us in the past. And they almost killed us. So, how can we not take revenge for this hatred?" Xie Guang'an smiled and said, "Minister Chu, it's understandable that your heavenly armament pavilion would make the first move. But, forgive me for being blunt. Your heavenly armament pavilion isn't weak. But, your strength is still a bit weak if you want to swallow the O clan." Chu Yang said in a matter of fact, "Don't we still have you? Moreover, the Xie clan is at the heart of the struggle. So, All the big clans have sent their experts here to protect their allies. Don't tell me that they're so idle as to watch us fight with our lives on the line? Xie Guang'an was stunned. Didn't you tell us not to move? When you wear our Heavenly Armament Pavilion's clothes and put on our Heavenly Armament Pavilion's masks, you are our Heavenly Armament Pavilion's people. Who told your Xie clan to take action? Chu Yang was somewhat depressed. It was just a trivial matter, yet he had to explain it for so long. As the head of the family, he couldn't even compare to his son. However, he didn't know that the Xie clan had always been under the control of the Elders' Council. And there was also the old ancestor above the Elders' Council. Xie Guang'an had become the clan lord in order to pave the way for Xie Danqiong to take over the clan lord's position in the future. Xie Danqiong had been born with the best aptitude in the Xie clan. So, the old ancestor had personally appointed him as the next clan lord. Xie Guang'an had ascended to the position of clan lord because of his son in order to avoid disputes within the clan. I see. Xie Guang'an hesitated. Is this all right? Chu Yang frowned and said, I'm in charge now. What he meant was, you stand further away and don't talk. Chu Yang immediately sent out a message. All the experts were to get ready. Then he issued the order to fight. Chu Yang didn't hesitate. All the experts had assembled in a moment. There were 13 Emperor-level experts and 200 King-level experts in addition to the external experts. Chu Yang didn't use the experts below the King level. I also want to participate in this battle. Ao Xieyun stepped forward and said seriously. He had already put on a mask on his face. All right. Chu Yang agreed. Wait a moment. Xie Zhiqiu stepped out of the void with a loud shout and arrived in front of Chu Yang. The aura of the Xie clan's old ancestor had advanced a lot since the last time they had met. It had become deeper like the sea and more majestic like a mountain. It seemed that his cultivation had made a breakthrough after he had obtained the mysterious jade ice crystal. He then said, Little brother, the Xie clan and the O clan have been here for several generations. Moreover, both sides have always been hostile. But they have never fought each other. Do you know why? Is it because of the O clan's poison? Chu Yang's eyes flashed. Xie Zhiqiu nodded and said, The O clan's poison technique is the best in the three heavens. This old man forbids you from going into battle if you don't have a way to deal with the poison. That's because you won't be going to annihilate the enemy. Instead, you'll be throwing away your life. The poison is everywhere in the O clan's courtyard. It's impossible to guard against it. Chu Yang faintly smiled. He then said with confidence, Senior, don't worry. This junior already has a plan for this. He asked GMO and Luo Kudi to carry out 2 big jugs of wine from their rooms. Each jug weighed 50 kilograms. They then shakily placed them in front of the team. This is my specially made detoxification wine. Everyone can drink a bowl of it. It can guarantee that you won't be invaded by 10,000 poisons for a period of time. Chu Yang calmly said. Won't be invaded by 10,000 poisons? Xie Zhiqiu's pupils shrank. Let me try. Then he stepped forward and scooped a bowl of wine. He drank it in one gulp. Then he took out a pitch-black pill from his bosom and put it in his mouth. Old ancestor, you can't. Xie Guang'an loudly shouted. His voice was filled with panic. It doesn't matter. Xie Zhiqiu pushed him aside. He smacked his lips after a long while. Then he suspiciously said, This poison dragon pill has lost its effect after drinking a bowl of wine. What kind of medicinal wine is this? Why does it taste like our Xie clan's drunken immortal? But our drunken immortal doesn't have the detoxification function. Chu Yang's face twitched. He let out 2 dry coughs and said, This old man is old. But his nose and mouth are still as intelligent as ever. He can even tell that this is your Xie clan's drunken immortal. These 2 jugs of wine were the same wine that Chu Yang had drunk on the night when he had made an agreement with the Xie clan. Chu Yang had single-handedly challenged the drinking capacity of the entire Xie clan on that day. So, the Xie clan's people still remembered it vividly. The old ancestor had set an example. So, the others also drank the wine one by one without any hesitation. Of course, more than half of these 200 people would have vomited on the spot if they had known that Chu Yang had drunk this wine. The sword's spirit couldn't change the fact that this wine had entered Chu Yang's mouth first. Then, it had entered Chu Yang's stomach, and then it had entered the tribulation space. In a sense, this wine is Minister Chu's excrement. Minister Chu had no choice. How could he have so much water in such a hurry? It would have been too wasteful if he had used the vitality spring. There were 2 jugs of wine in the tribulation space. So, how could he not use them? Moreover, the wine's efficacy would have dispersed a bit faster. Since that's the case, this old man will exercise his hands and feet tonight. Leave that old poison of the O clan to this old man. Xie Zhiqiu wasn't afraid of the O clan's poison after drinking the wine. So, he was full of heroic spirit. The old ancestor of the O clan had always been in the O clan's secret chamber. He and Xie Zhiqiu were old enemies. The 2 old men were well aware that the other wasn't dead. So, it was time to decide who would live or die. Xie Zhiqiu had just broken through to the martial monarch realm. So, he wasn't afraid of the old poison. So, he naturally didn't put that old poison in his eyes. Everyone, today's plan is like this. Chu Yang drew on the ground with his long sword. Tonight, we will destroy the O clan. Chu Yang finished the arrangements. Then, he shouted, "My heavenly armament pavilion will rise in 3 days from tonight." What? Only Dong Wuxiang and the others responded. The others looked at King of Hell Chu with a strange look in their eyes. "We are the ones fighting. How can your heavenly armament pavilion rise?" Minister Chu didn't care about this. "You are the ones fighting. But, you are using the name of our heavenly armament pavilion. Who will know that you are the ones fighting after this battle? We have offended so many people in the northern wilderness. So, it's inevitable that some people will come to settle accounts with us. But, who will dare to come and look for trouble if those guys know that we have the ability to destroy the O clan in one night? Moreover, the heavenly armament pavilion will become famous. So, who would be afraid that no one will come to join us? Tonight's operation must be fast. Moreover, we aren't afraid of the O clan's poison. But we must make use of their poison. Don't confront them head-on if you can mount a sneak attack. And don't call yourselves heroes if you can catch them off guard." Chu Yang's eyes flashed like lightning. He then said with a righteous face, "First, pretend to be dead when you encounter poison. Then, wait for the enemy to arrive at your side. Then, kill them violently. We must caress the necks of these poisonous creatures of the O clan like a gentle breeze. We must caress their necks like lovers. We must let them die in surprise and trembling." Minister Chu said with an awe-inspiring righteousness, "I call this operation, Operation Love O." Do you remember it? Everyone broke out in cold sweat. This guy in front of them was extremely treacherous. Of course, the most awesome thing was that he could deploy such a vicious, sinister, despicable and wretched battle plan with an awe-inspiring righteousness on his face. He was a genius that had never been seen before. His Operation Love-O? Who can withstand such a fatal caress? Get ready now. Everyone will set out after a quarter of an hour. We will rush into the O clan at the 3rd watch of the night. Burn, kill, and plunder. Cut the weeds and dig up the roots. Don't leave a chicken or a dog alive. There won't be a O clan for 3 days after tonight. A murderous intention flashed in Chu Yang's eyes. That night, it was late at night. The sky was dotted with stars. The earth was dark. The O clan's ancient castle was continuous on this hillside. A feng shui master would have recognized the O clan's headquarters if he had come here to take a look. It was the location of a dragon's vein in this mountain. It was a dark night. More than 200 experts had gathered in a small forest more than 5 kilometers away. They were glaring like tigers watching their prey. Everyone was crouching in the underbrush. Their eyes were flickering with a bright light. "Let's go." Chu Yang waved his hand. He took the lead and rushed out. Gu Duxing, GMO, Rui Butong, and Tan Tan followed closely behind. They went out like a cool breeze. Dong Wuxiang and Luo Kadi weren't suitable for this operation. Dong Wuxiang was too tall and sturdy. and Luokadi was somewhat lacking in this aspect. So, Chu Yang and the other 4 people could only start the operation. The people behind them watched the 5 people rush out. They nervously opened their eyes wide. But then they rubbed their eyes with their hands. What did I just see? How did these people disappear after they went out? There was only a piece of flat grassland in front of them. The highest part of the grassland was only up to their calves. But these 5 people were madly rushing and flying on this grassland. And they were moving without making any sound. Chu Yang and the others had already rushed out 7 or 8 kilometers with a whoosh sound. Their movements were like the caress of a lover. They were gentle and graceful. They were full of tenderness and affection. But they were also full of deadly murderous intention. The gate of the O clan's castle was right in front of them. The 4th watch has been delivered. Chapter 593. Everyone in the grove looked at the faintly discernible silhouettes flickering under the starlight. Their hearts were in their mouths. The O clan had been an aristocratic clan for hundreds of years. So, how strong was its castle? Chu Yang and the others were very skilled in concealment techniques. However, they couldn't enter the city directly. So, what kind of method would they use to trick the O clan into opening the gate? Everyone still had doubts in their hearts. King of Hell Chu had said that he had a way. But what method would he use to make the O clan open the gate in such a tense situation? Therefore, no one had dared to think of a strong attack. Even a monarch-level expert wouldn't necessarily be able to blast open the gate of the O clan. Everyone was looking at King of Hell Chu at this moment. The O clan would be destroyed tonight as long as King of Hell Chu could open the gate. However, everyone would have no choice but to withdraw if the gate couldn't be opened. It was so quiet that it seemed as if the late night wind had condensed into a silent oppression. Suddenly, a sword light appeared in the dark night and illuminated the night sky. A bleak and vicissitudes of life aura seemed to have come from ancient times. And it swept through the world in a flash. The entire world suddenly changed from the early autumn season to a biting cold wind. A cold light appeared. It was extended. A lightning-like sword light split the entire world in a split second. Even the void of the late night trembled fiercely at this moment. The sword light was like a dragon as it crossed the sky. It was hundreds of feet long and was as thick as a drum. It majestically rushed towards the gate of the O clan. It seemed as if it could topple mountains and overturn seas. Everyone was petrified. King of Hell Chu had said that he had a way. But it turned out to be a barbaric and hooligan's method. He had used his sword to blast open the gate of the O clan with absolute violence. This bastard even said that he would use the fiery light as a signal. Everyone had thought that he had a way to sneak in. But they hadn't expected that he would use the fiery light as a signal. Motherfucker! Why would he need the fiery light as a signal? Even a blind person would be able to see your sword light within 200 miles. Crazy! More than 200 experts sighed at the same time. Then, an idea arose in everyone's mind. Get ready to retreat. This King of Hell Chu has no plan. I thought that he would have a way, but it seems that he was just bragging. Today's training. Motherfucker! How could the O clan have survived until now if you could split open the gate of the O clan with your sword? Hadn't they been destroyed 700 to 800 times already? How childish! Did he think that he was a saint-level expert? However, in the next moment, everyone who was sighing suddenly widened their eyes and rubbed their eyes with their fingers. Their faces were filled with disbelief and horror as if they had seen a ghost. I must be dreaming, right? That ball of sword light boldly rushed over. The sword light had barely risen when someone on the O clan's gate tower noticed it. Enemy attack! A shrill scream was heard, and the copper bell that sounded the alarm kept ringing. Then clusters of gold and silver light appeared, and streams of 5-colored black smoke poured down one after another. Countless concealed weapons and poisons instantly filled the area within a radius of 500 feet in front of the O clan's main gate. However, all these lights and colors were overshadowed by Chu Yang's sword light. Ding 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 sounds rang out continuously. Gold and silver lights scattered in all directions. The poisonous smoke that had just started to spread out suddenly disappeared. Suddenly, a few miserable screams rang out from the city gate. The sword light had struck back the concealed weapons and had gone to look for their masters. However, that sword light carried the power of a thunderbolt and resolutely crashed into the gate like a meteor. This door was a full 10 feet thick and made of steel. It was as heavy as 10,000 kilograms. But it seemed as if a giant's belly had been pierced in front of this sword light. And a big hole appeared in front of it. There were neat traces of tearing steel plates around the hole. Chu Yang had rushed into the O clan's castle with his sword. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air at the same time. What kind of monster is this? Even Xie Zhiqiu, who had the highest cultivation among everyone present, had opened his eyes wide, and his mouth wide open, as if he had seen a ghost. He was so shocked that he was almost speechless. Xie Zhiqiu had obtained the mysterious jade ice crystal, and had finally broken through the barrier of monarch-level expert. However, he asked himself, I wouldn't have been able to penetrate this gate of the O clan if I had a divine weapon in my hand. And I would have used my lifelong cultivation to drive it. But this king of Helchu has not only penetrated it, but has also created such a big hole. Moreover, he has also rushed in. Then, a few screams came out from inside. Then, a sword light lit up outside, and followed closely behind King of Helchu. Then, the man and the sword rushed in together. The entire space was suddenly filled with a biting cold sword in tension when this sword came out. It seemed as if a cold wind was whistling through the earth. Then, a neat clang sound resounded in the entire world. Even the experts who had been lying in ambush in the grove were no exception. The swords on the waists of all the people who used swords vibrated at the same time and saluted the emperor. This was the worldly principle of the way of the sword. Sword Emperor. This Gu clan's young clan lord Gu Duxing is an extremely pure sword emperor. He doesn't have the slightest bit of impurity. Xie Zhiqiu grabbed his head and exclaimed in surprise. However, this sword cry had reminded everyone, and they rushed out one after another. Dong Wushang had already taken the lead and rushed to the front. GMO, Tan Tan, Rui Butong, and the others had already entered the castle after Gu Duxing. Countless experts of the O clan were crazily rushing out from inside the castle. Everyone knew that the O clan would be finished if they couldn't guard the main gate and drive the enemy out. Chu Yang's body was taken over by the sword spirit at that moment. Then he suddenly burst forth and launched the move, "What harm is there in slaughtering the entire world?" with all his strength. The 10,000-year evil spirit had erupted. Moreover, the calamity sword had an invincible sharpness, and the peerless might of the sword move had broken through the 10,000-pound main gate of the O clan with irresistible force. Then he rushed into the O clan with his sword and smashed the inner gate of the O clan. Then he slaughtered all the experts of the O clan who had been guarding the main gate. Blood flowed like a river. Then, Chu Yang stuffed an incomplete version of the heavy pill into his mouth. The sword spirit waited until Chu Yang's martial power had recovered by half. Then he quietly withdrew and let Chu Yang take control of the situation. The experts of the O clan rushed forward like a tide. Chu Yang shouted loudly, and a cold light shone in 10,000 fathoms. He made a move, and the world was suddenly filled with cold lights. In fact, the entire sky was filled with cold lights. A ding-ding-dang-dang sound was heard, and blood was bursting out from time to time. The sword light flashed beside him, and a sharp sword energy swept past him. It then rushed into the crowd without stopping. The swords of dozens of enemies issued a clanging sound at the same time. Sword Emperor! Gu Duxing has arrived. Gu Duxing let out a long and loud shout, and the black dragon sword issued a sword cry at the same time. Then, it started to tremble and churn in the air. GMO and the other two rushed in after that. The might of the five brothers' joint attack was like that of a mad tiger. In fact, they managed to push the experts of the O clan back outside the gate tower. However, the space was vast, and the pressure had multiplied once they had gone out. Countless experts of the O clan had rushed over from all directions. Chu Yang and the others had rushed in, but the situation still wasn't optimistic. This place was still narrow. Those old monsters would have been able to take advantage of the terrain to firmly block everyone if the O clan had firmly guarded this place. In fact, even 200 king-level experts wouldn't have been able to display their full strength due to the narrow terrain. And they would have been annihilated by the enemy. Therefore, Chu Yang must immediately change the present situation. Rushing in wasn't a victory. The real battle would take place in a short period of time after they had rushed in. Chu Yang and the others must guard the passage. They must open the passage and allow the experts of the O clan to calmly enter the castle. Only then would their initial plan be considered a success. Chu Yang let out a long and loud shout. GMO and Gu Duxing immediately stood in a row. Then, they suddenly took 3 steps forward and crazily attacked the enemies. They were protecting Chu Yang behind them. GMO and Rui Butong's bodies were splashed with blood during these 3 steps. They had been injured. Chu Yang took advantage of this small gap and roared loudly. Shua! 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 He threw out dozens of big oil barrels one after another from the tribulation space. Each barrel weighed hundreds of kilograms. They fell down with a loud rumble, and the kerosene splashed in all directions. Then he flicked his hand and threw them out like meteors. Boom! The flames came in contact with the kerosene and started to burn fiercely. Bang! The raging flames soared to the sky, and the oil barrels exploded in the crowd of the O clan. Oil barrels? That bastard, where did he get so much kerosene? Old Third Exen is burning. Quickly retreat. Quickly retreat. I don't believe that they can rush in from such a big fire. Blood-curdling screams resounded unceasingly. Then, boom boom boom, several oil barrels exploded at the same time. Flames soared to the sky in front of the city gate's main gate. This stopped the O clan's experts from rushing towards the gate. The raging flames soared to the sky. Blood-curdling screams resounded unceasingly. A gray-clothed man's silhouette rushed over from the direction of the O clan's inner palace. He was flying at such a high speed that he issued sonic booms in the air. He then shouted loudly, "What happened?" Several silhouettes soared from the direction of the inner palace and rushed over here. Chu Yang took large strides to welcome them. The 7 shades cold energy floated around his body and wrapped Gu Duxing and the others inside. He let out a long and loud shout, and the raging flames suddenly separated on both sides. Then, the 5 brothers strode out of the flames and suddenly rushed in. It seemed as if 5 fiendish demons had suddenly rushed out of the raging flames. Their entire bodies were emitting a sinister and vicious aura. Chu Yang burst into laughter and said, "Nothing happened. It's just that the King of Hell has come to invite us to dinner. Everyone, please go to the Netherworld's 18 layers of hell for a meal, sightseeing, and a permanent residence there. The entire O clan is here. Get ready to attend the banquet." Ha! That gray-clothed old man coldly snorted. He floated down from the sky and shouted, "Ignorant Junior." This old man, O Fanga, will take your little life. The wind from his palm whistled and chopped towards Chu Yang's face. A cold light flickered and covered the top of his head. Black energy filled the air. He had launched the O clan's unique poison technique at the same time. It seemed as if a mass of dense fog had fallen down by the time he had landed on the ground. The dense fog was mixed with a cold light. Chu Yang sneered and said, "A trifling first-grade emperor-level expert dares to boast shamelessly in front of me. Die of old age." Tribulation sword flashed high up in the sky. He didn't dodge or evade. His sharp determination was buried deep, but it didn't change. He rushed forward to meet force with force. The sword light dazzled like a midnight flower and suddenly exploded in the sky. To be continued. Chapter 594. Chu Yang's sword light burst forth, and a figure rolled in like a gust of wind from the circular hole that the Calamity Sword had created behind him. Xie Qiu was like a fish in water. But he had brazenly rushed in like a raging storm. He waved his hand, and a sparkling ice crystal armor condensed on his body. Then he rushed into the fire without stopping. He appeared beside GMO in the next moment. Xie Qiu snapped the necks of the 3 king-level experts who were besieging GMO with a kacha sound. Xie Qiu smashed the head of the king-level expert on the right with his left hand, and smashed it like a watermelon. Then he grabbed the last king-level expert's chest with his skinny fingers, and pulled out his heart while it was still alive. Xie Qiu swept past like a gust of wind, and the 3 king-level experts besieging Rui Butong fell down like straws. His skinny body rushed into the camp of the O clan's experts like a whirlwind, and started a massacre. His silhouette left a bloody alley wherever he passed. Chu Yang's hidden sharp determination had already pounced on the gray-robed emperor-level expert from midair by this time. He pierced through the poisonous fog. The sword light was shattered. The gray-robed emperor-level expert O Fangge couldn't believe his eyes. Chu Yang crushed the treasured sword that had accompanied him for his entire life into pieces. Then, his hand that was holding the sword turned into blood foam. Then, his arm, shoulder, and half of his body got swallowed up by the sword light. His eyes were still filled with confusion, shock, and puzzlement. He had never dreamed that the opposite party would ignore his poisonous technique. This was a highly toxic poison that could make an elephant fall down if it smelled it. But this man's entire body was shrouded in his poisonous fog. And he had still beheaded him? How is this possible? His heart was still filled with these words until his death. How is this possible? People were constantly passing through the circular hole in the main gate. Some of them practiced cold attribute cultivation techniques. So, they had to circulate their cultivation to endure the flames. However, some of the ordinary king-level experts didn't have such good luck. However, these people knew that tonight was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. All the clans were preparing in secret, but none of them had made any move. Therefore, the O clan had never thought that they would be the first clan to be attacked. Therefore, they had been careless in guarding against this attack. Breaking through the main gate of the O clan would be as difficult as ascending to heaven if they missed this opportunity. Moreover, who knows if King of Hell Chu still has any antidote wine. Next time, would the O clan research a special poison to deal with the detoxification wine? This was a risk that no one could take. Therefore, he had to go all out tonight. They endured the burning flames and rushed into the fire. Then, they rushed out of the flames with their bodies burning. They rolled on the ground to extinguish the flames. Then, they rushed into the enemy's formation with blisters all over their bodies. The results of the battle were increasing step by step. Only a few experts of the O clan were left outside the city gate by the time more than half of the 200 experts had entered the city. Long and loud whistling sounds were unceasingly heard. People of the O clan were rushing over here from all directions. Chu Yang and Xie Qiu also led the troops forward like a sharp arrow. And they left no survivors wherever they went. The O clan seemed to have realized that the enemy had already broken through the city's gate tower. So, they had also given up on the fight for the city's gate tower. All the experts of the O clan were advancing towards the O clan's main building amidst the mournful howls. This place was the core of the O clan. All of the O clan's top forces, all of their experts, all of their wealth. They were all here. Hundreds of people had already gathered in the square in front of the gate. And more people were still gathering here. Everyone was silent as they looked at the long road in front of them. The roads leading to this place had been sprinkled with poison, including the roof. Moreover, the poisonous fog had filled the entire sky of the O clan. It was dawn. But this place was still very dark. The poisonous fog was so thick and dense that it even surpassed the darkness of the night where one couldn't even see their own fingers. All the clansmen of the O clan had thrown out all of their stocks. These poisons could kill as soon as they touched blood, but they were of the lowest grade. Most of these poisons could cause one's entire body to fester and be consigned to eternal damnation as long as one came into contact with them. There was also a lot of floating poisonous fog. It was similar to the poisonous fog of a plague. But it was 100 times more vicious than a plague. If all the poisons of the O clan were to be placed in a densely populated area, it could be clearly said that there wouldn't be a single living being within a radius of several thousand miles. This included livestock, wild fowls and wild beasts, and even plants, trees, flowers and flowers. The area within a radius of 1,000 miles would become a land of death within 100 years. Nothing would be able to live there. Using such a formation to deal with a mere 200 or so enemies seemed to be using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. However, everyone's hearts were restless. They were looking at the wide road with panic in their eyes. In fact, some of them were out of their wits. It seemed as if their spiritual support had been taken away. That was because they knew that the poison formation in the direction of the city gate wasn't much inferior to the one here. And the enemies had broken through from that direction. But they hadn't caused any casualties. Could it be that they weren't afraid of the poison? This thought had defeated the faith of some of the O clan's people. The pillar of the O clan, including their spiritual support, was poison. No one was afraid of using poison to run rampant in the three heavens. No one wasn't afraid of it. In fact, even the AO clan had to give way to them because of their poison. Therefore, the O clan had been growing stronger and stronger. The number of emperor-level experts had also been increasing. The nearby Xie clan only had one emperor-level expert. But the O clan was famous. This was the light of the poison. The O clan would have had at least half as many experts if they hadn't used poison to intimidate the three heavens. They wouldn't have dared to kill. This was the attitude of the people of the three heavens towards the O clan. After all, they would have had to face thousands upon thousands of poison experts as long as they killed one of them. Who would have dared to take such a big risk? However, the enemy wasn't afraid of poison now. This was tantamount to smashing the O clan's biggest pillar of support. It had shattered their illusions and had taken away their most powerful spiritual support. More and more experts of the O clan had gathered. They had slowly formed the scale of 1,000 people in front of the main building. And more people were still rushing over. All the people who had rushed over had tacitly arranged themselves in an orderly manner according to their original positions and status in the clan. All the guards had spontaneously arranged themselves in a formation. More than 1,000 people were standing quietly in the morning breeze. And the number of people had slowly increased to more than 2,000. Many people had formed teams in the distance and were silently paying attention to this side. Those people were the low-level warriors of the O clan. Everyone below the martial great master level was there. All the people who were standing here were martial great masters or above. 3 old men were standing in the front. Their white beards were fluttering in the wind. Their complexions were cold and stiff. They were the 3 remaining emperor-level elders of the O clan. 5 emperor-level experts had been killed by King of Hell Chu in the chill wind forest. And the first one had died in battle today. The remaining 3 emperor-level elders didn't know that the emperor-level expert who had died today had also died at the hands of King of Hell Chu. The sound of footsteps gradually came from afar. It was accompanied by a murderous aura. It seemed as if countless ancient beasts were slowly walking over step by step. The aura in the air seemed to have solidified as the sound of footsteps got closer and closer. The palms of the 3 emperor-level elders had already started to sweat. Even their foreheads had become somewhat soaked. They could tell from the sound of the footsteps that the enemy's strength hadn't suffered any damage. This also showed that the enemy wasn't afraid of poison. The 3 elders sighed as they looked at the dense poisonous fog that was pervading the air above the main building of the O clan. Despair had faintly risen in their hearts. The clan lord and the young lord had led 300 experts of the clan to hunt down Ao Xie Yun. But they hadn't returned yet. King of Hell Chu had ruthlessly attacked them in the chill wind forest. 30 king-level experts and 5 emperor-level experts had been killed. The strength of the O clan wasn't much now. In fact, it wasn't even 1/4 of its usual strength. There were more than 2,000 people around them. It seemed like a lot of people. But the 3 elders knew that there were only a dozen or so king-level experts among these people. Only a few of them were revered martial artists. But most of them were martial great masters. They were at a disadvantage in terms of strength compared to the enemy. Does the old ancestor know about this matter? An old man licked his lips and asked. The great elder remained silent for a moment. Then he replied, the old ancestor already knows. But he hasn't come out yet? The old ancestor is an emperor-level expert. Perhaps these enemies wouldn't be enough to deal with him if he were to come out. I only hope that the old ancestor won't come out too late. The great elder didn't speak. He knew that his brother was emboldening him. The old ancestor was an emperor-level expert. And the enemy camp didn't have a corresponding expert. But they would be exhausted to death if they were to deal with so many experts with their own strength. The sound of footsteps was getting clearer and clearer in the dense fog. Suddenly, the dense poisonous fog seemed to be disappearing rapidly. And a black-clothed man appeared in front of them. Wherever he went, the poisonous fog would quickly disappear. It seemed as if a thin snowflake had encountered the scorching sun in the sky. He had sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes, a jade-like face and vermilion lips, and a slender figure with a long sword hanging from his waist. He was dressed in black, and looked like a black cloud floating in the sky. It was a handsome youngster. However, this youngster's eyes were filled with endless murderous aura. He stepped out of the poisonous fog, and raised his eyes to look. His gaze was like two sharp swordlights. And he was staring straight at the great elder's face. King of Hell Chu. The great elder was stunned. The great elder had seen Chu Yang the last time he had come to the O clan. Not only had he seen him, but he had also left a deep impression on him. Great elder, time flies. We meet again. Chu Yang's voice was very gentle. There was a faint and warm smile on his face. In fact, it seemed as if he was a newly married son-in-law who was accompanying his wife to her parents' home. His voice was gentle, and his complexion was warm. However, there was a trace of restraint and shyness on his face. But the content of his words was completely different. Don't forget that Great Elder's elegant demeanor is still the same as before. But you're still like a malicious ghost. So, it's good to congratulate you. He faintly smiled. Then he politely said, Great Elder, I've specially sent you to become a real malicious ghost. What do you think? Do you feel like you're going crazy with joy? To be continued. Chapter 595. King of Hell Chu, are you dealing with my O clan this time? The great elder angrily said, You are very bold. Chu Yang gently smiled and said, Does your O clan only know how to talk nonsense like this? My heavenly armament pavilion has already attacked this place. But you still can't determine that I'm dealing with you? He somewhat pitifully said, How low is your IQ? The great elder was furious. His frosty white eyebrows trembled. Then he took a long breath and suppressed the anger in his heart. He then said, King of Hell Chu, our O clan had handled the matter that day without thinking. We had offended you, and you came back to take revenge. So we have nothing to say. However, you've already killed many of our O clan's people. You've also breached the castle. So, you should be able to offset the hatred between us, right? Moreover, you haven't suffered any losses or casualties. His deadfish-like eyes seemed to have softened. He then slowly said, King of Hell Chu, this old man promises to let bygones be bygones if you withdraw now. And we won't interfere with your heavenly armament pavilion from now on. What do you think? The great elder's words caused an uproar among the O clan's people. They hadn't expected that the powerful great elder would show weakness in front of the enemy today. This had greatly damaged the O clan's reputation. The great elder was also helpless. Only King of Hell Chu had appeared on the other side. There were still many experts hidden in the dark. The O clan had fallen into a disadvantageous position in today's battle. So, they would have avoided this calamity if King of Hell Chu withdrew. They would have made King of Hell Chu die miserably if they had missed this opportunity. They had shown weakness, but it was a delaying tactic. One had to endure humiliation to carry a heavy burden. Moreover, The old ancestor hadn't shown himself yet. So, the O clan's chances of victory would have increased if the old ancestor hadn't retreated. Chu Yang chuckled and said, "Great Elder, you must be joking. This is just a misunderstanding. Of course, everything will be fine once the misunderstanding is resolved. As the saying goes, it's better to squash enmity than to keep it alive. A friend is a road, and an enemy is a wall. Patience is like a knife above a person's head. Let go when you have to let go. Let go when you can spare people. Great Elder is a wise and far-sighted elder." The expression on the Great Elder's face became extremely marvelous after he heard these words. The fact that the other party had fallen into his trap so easily shocked him. Chu Yang naturally saw through the other party's intention. He was just stalling for time. It just so happened that Chu Yang also needed to stall for time. So, it was natural that they were an adulterous couple. Even if the Great Elder were to delay, he would only be able to delay until that old ancestor of the O clan came out. Moreover, he already had a countermeasure on his side. Xie Zhiqiu was ready to fight. He reckoned that even if that old man came out, it wouldn't be of much use. The O clan didn't have any other reinforcements or military forces. Chu Yang was not afraid at all. However, the reason why he was stalling for time was because he was the one who had set the fire. 200 experts had rushed out of the raging inferno. The cold attribute energy wasn't that bad. But 70 or 80 king-level experts had different degrees of burns on their bodies. He had ignited so much kerosene at the same time. It was almost comparable to lava. Although everyone had rushed in with injuries, they were about to face so many enemies. It would definitely affect their strength and cause too many unnecessary casualties. However, the Great Elder didn't know about this. The Great Elder wanted to stall for time. So, Chu Yang naturally wanted to take advantage of it. Gu Duxing and the others were melting the 3 incomplete versions of the heavy pills in a big bowl of Vitality Spring water. Everyone who was injured and burned drank a mouthful of it and seized the time to heal their injuries. This period of time was very rare. So, Minister Chu means to stop here? The Great Elder asked tentatively. Stop? Of course, I have to stop. Chu Yang nodded repeatedly. We don't have any enmity between us. Don't you think so? Besides, Great Elder, you're already so old. If you want me to have any enmity with you for stealing your wife, I won't be interested. I won't be able to do it. Don't you think so? It's a misunderstanding. It's fine as long as it's clarified. Great Elder can consider giving me some compensation. Then I will turn around and leave without any objection. What kind of compensation do you want? The Great Elder hastily asked. He didn't get angry. He thought in his heart, you want to have the hatred of snatching my wife? I've already refined my wife's 5 poisons body. She's already underground. You'll have to die first if you want to snatch my wife. Let me calculate. Minister Chu looked up to the sky. He had a serious look on his face as he calculated. Your O clan deceived me first. Then you ambushed me, and then the losses, my emotional loss, my belonged, my anger, my heart, my depressed, my loss of feelings, my loss of youth, my loss of goods, my loss of anger, my loss of heart, my loss of beauty, my loss of beauty, my loss of girls. He talked about his losses in a row. In fact, he talked about 30 to 40 kinds of losses. The Great Elder got angry when he heard this. He almost wanted to strangle Chu Yang to death. However, he had no choice but to endure the current situation. So, he listened with a smile on his face. Everything will be fine as long as this bastard leaves. It's just a matter of a few words for me to flatten this little guy. Chu Yang talked nonstop about his losses until Gu Duxing coughed softly and said, "That's enough." Then he stopped. He took a deep breath and said, "That's all. It's fine if you compensate me. I don't want to go overboard. I'm just putting myself in your shoes. So, I don't want to offend you. What kind of compensation do you want?" The Great Elder restrained his anger. But his eyes were flickering with anger. "It's very simple. The people of your O clan will commit suicide together. Then you'll give me this territory. and it'll be okay. Chu Yang faintly smiled. What do you think? The great elder's entire body started to tremble. His eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He clenched his teeth and said, Are you playing with me? Smart. Chu Yang snapped his fingers. He then said with a smile, You're a genius, child. The great elder looked at Chu Yang with anger in his eyes. He was so angry that it seemed as if he was going to suffer from asthma. His entire body seemed to be filled with air. And he slowly swelled up. Then he suddenly shouted, Son of a bitch! Don't shout your own name so loudly. Chu Yang sincerely and earnestly instructed, This isn't good. Others will scold your father. The great elder was so angry that he had lost his reason. His stature grew and he rushed over. His body hadn't arrived yet. But a sharp whistling sound was heard in the air. Two silhouettes flashed. Two emperor-level experts flashed out of the gray fog behind Chu Yang and went to greet the great elder. Then, the dense fog stirred up, and more than 200 experts quietly appeared. Each of them was wearing a black robe and a sinister mask on their faces. The great elder turned over and retreated with two thumping sounds. He then looked at these 200 people in front of him in bewilderment. He was surprised to find that even the weakest among them was a king-level expert. Where did King of Hell Chu find so many experts? These are all the people of your heavenly armament pavilion? The great elder's eyes flickered as he asked. Of course. They aren't the people of the heavenly armament pavilion. Could it be that they are the people of your O clan? Chu Yang curled his lips and said with a smile, Surrender and commit suicide. Be obedient. The great elder staggered. Despair rose in his heart. Several alarmed cries came from the crowd of the O clan behind him. They were in an uproar. The enemy's lineup is so formidable. Chu Yang's gaze turned cold. The murderous intention in his eyes slowly became more and more intense. He then waved his hand, Go! Kill them all. Don't leave anyone alive. More than 200 people set into action as soon as the order was given. They rushed straight towards the densely packed troops of the O clan. Battle cries resounded everywhere. Saber lights and sword shadows flashed back and forth. Blood-curdling screams resounded. The great elder stood in front of Chu Yang in a daze. He looked at this group of mysterious enemies rushing and killing inside the 10,000 poisons great array that his clan had painstakingly arranged. They weren't affected in the slightest. So he felt bitter in his heart. O clan is finished. The great elder felt even more uncomfortable as this thought rose in his mind. I only want to ask one thing. The great elder smiled sadly. How come you aren't afraid of poison? It's very simple. Our physique is very good, Chu Yang replied. The great elder knew that Chu Yang wouldn't blame him. So he heaved a long sigh. Then he suddenly shouted, Ancestor! Ancestor, please come out quickly. The O clan is finished. The O clan is finished. His voice spread far and wide like a thunderbolt. His voice was filled with sorrow and despair. So, almost everyone could hear it. The great elder knew that such a big thing had happened. So, the ancestor must have known about it. Moreover, the great elder was watching from the sidelines. However, he felt more and more sorrowful because of this. Is the ancestor of my clan helplessly watching the destruction of my clan? The battle cries were still echoing. The people of the O clan were still falling down in droves. A group of revered martial artists and martial great masters were facing a large group of king-level experts and emperor-level experts. In fact, the disparity between them couldn't be measured with words. The great elder finally threw himself into the battle. He attacked with grief and indignation. He wanted to find King of Hell Chu. He wanted to kill this chief culprit first. However, he couldn't reach King of Hell Chu's side under the siege. He could only look at that damned bastard as he continued to sneakily plot against the O clan's people. And the O clan's people fell into his hands one after another. Ao Xie Yun was the craziest in the battle. He was wearing the mask of the heavenly armament pavilion. His eyes had already turned red from the killing. He would roar in his heart every time he killed someone, Revenge! I will take revenge for you. His heart was getting more and more sour. And it was getting more and more resentful. I only want to kill the enemy. Du Qin-yun and Qin-zhan's faces floated in front of him. Their eyes were vaguely filled with worry and concern. Uncle Du, Uncle Qin, I will take revenge for you. Do you see it? Ao Xie-yun was crazily killing. His heart ached, and tears suddenly streamed down his cheeks. Do you see it? Do you see it? Ao Xie-yun suddenly faced upwards and roared. Tears streamed down his face. I will take revenge for you. I will take revenge. I will take revenge. Ao Xie-yun crazily chopped the enemy in front of him into two halves. Then, he chopped the enemy's waist with his sword. He chopped the enemy into pieces as if he was chopping melons and vegetables. He roared violently after he attacked with his sword. Then, he started to bawl loudly. He cried so hard that his liver and intestines were cut to pieces. He cried so hard that snot and tears flowed down his face. He attacked the enemy with his sword while crying. I hate it. I feel so bad. Because you won't be able to see it even if I kill all the enemies. You won't be able to see it. To be continued. Chapter 596. Suddenly, a gloomy voice resounded in this chaotic place. Where did this bastard come from? How dare he behave so atrociously in my O clan? This voice was gloomy, but it seemed to carry a kind of rotten smell. It could make people want to vomit after they heard it. It seemed as if a wet viper had suddenly crouched down on their bodies. The battlefield suddenly quieted down. Everyone stopped their attacks by chance. They raised their heads to look. Xie Zhiqiu quietly moved a few steps and stood beside Chu Yang. Apart from him, no one else among the people present on the scene knew that this old ancestor of the O clan was cunning, cruel, and dreadful. O Kufeng was a dreadful opponent. He was as timid as a mouse. But he was as cunning as a fox and as cruel as a wolf. He would run away as soon as he felt a sense of crisis. However, he would stop at nothing if he felt that he could suppress his opponent. He would torture his enemy to death. He had once killed a person for 80 days. That person had no flesh on his body by the time he had killed him on the 80th day. His blood had also flowed out. But he hadn't died yet. So he had pierced his finger into his opponent's throat. Xie Zhiqiu was wearing a mask and black clothes. He had only used the strength of a king-level expert in this fight. He hadn't dared to expose his true strength. That was because he knew that O Kufeng would have looked on helplessly as the entire O clan was razed to the ground if he had exposed his true strength. After all, he wouldn't have risked his life. However, O Kufeng would have been left with endless troubles in the future if he had managed to escape today. Such an enemy would have been hiding in the dark and could launch an attack at any time. Even the Xie clan would have had a headache if he had relied on his superb poison techniques and world-shaking Xian techniques. Moreover, they would have been powerless against him. So, they could only make him come out first. Xie Zhiqiu felt that this divine sense was scanning the battlefield back and forth during the fight. It seemed as if it was looking for something. It seemed as if it was worried about something. Xie Zhiqiu restrained his aura even more cautiously. O Kufeng finally jumped out arrogantly when he discovered that none of the enemies present on the scene could pose a threat to him. However, only 700 or 800 people remained from the original 2,000 people at the entrance of the O clan's main hall. However, O Kufeng obviously didn't care. The great elder of the O clan and the others heaved a sigh of relief. The ancestor is finally going to make a move. We've already suffered disastrous casualties. But we can still preserve our foundation. Under the light of dawn, a gray-clothed figure could be seen standing on the roof of the hall. His eyes, which were the size of mung beans, emitted a viper-like light, cruel and cold. Just by looking into his eyes, everyone felt a chill run down their spines. There was no sign of life on this person at all. It was as if an ancient zombie had suddenly appeared in the human world. There wasn't the slightest bit of emotion. He didn't even have the slightest bit of affection for his own clansmen and descendants. This was an extremely selfish person. Even though he had shown himself, He was still standing at a high place. Although he was arrogant, anyone with a discerning eye could see that he would immediately run away as soon as the situation went wrong. Think of a way to make him come down. Xie Zhiqiu didn't dare to raise his head. Yi Shiwen raised his head. Oku Feng might disappear in the blink of an eye if Oku Feng sensed my gaze. Chu Yang nodded. He then raised his head and looked at Oku Feng. Where did such a monster come from? He actually looks like a human. Bold Jr. You dare to insult our ancestor. The great elder of the O clan shouted angrily. He is your ancestor? Chu Yang's face suddenly became clear. No wonder. No wonder your O clan looks neither like a human nor a ghost. So, that's how it is. Little one, you're dead. Oku Feng looked down at Chu Yang with his sinister eyes from above. He then said in a gloomy voice. Motherfucker. You scared me to death. Chu Yang spat out a mouthful of saliva. He then waved his hand and said, What are you still doing? Hurry up and get to work. Finish this job. Kill all these people in front of us. Then, set a big fire and withdraw. As for that old bastard, let him stay there. Kill. Gu Duxing burst into loud laughter. He then brandished his sword, and the sword light curled up. 7 or 8 people didn't even have time to scream before they were cut into 2 halves. Then, Dong Wushang, Ao Xie Yun, and the others also moved into action. Tan Tan shouted as he moved, Kill them! Motherfucker! Why do I feel like I'm killing chickens? I feel even more at ease after I see that old bastard. Motherfucker! Everyone says that I'm ugly. But I've discovered that I'm a handsome man when I see this old bastard. It's rare for me to be so satisfied. It's so cool. The O clan's people fell down in large numbers. The great elder and the others were furious. However, Oku Feng frowned and chuckled. Do you want to provoke me to go down? So that you can kill me? I won't fall into your trap. I won't go down. The O clan's emperor expert who was fighting with Dong Wushang couldn't help but fiercely spurred out blood when he heard these words. He had been bitterly supporting himself under Dong Wushang's violent and overbearing attacks. So, he had suffered internal injuries. He became angry, anxious, and desperate when he heard his ancestors' words. So, he couldn't help but spurt out blood. Dong Wushang shouted loudly. He suddenly jumped up and chopped him into 2 halves with his saber. He didn't even blink his eyes as he dragged his saber and rushed to the other battlefield. The battlefield was shrinking, and the O clan was suffering more and more casualties. However, only 4 or 5 people had died on the black-robed men's side. The disparity between the 2 sides was too big. The remaining 2 Emperor-level experts were besieged and suppressed by 8 Emperor-level experts. They were battered and exhausted, and they were crying for help. Oku Feng stood up and then sat down. He stood up and then sat down again. He wanted to come down, but he felt that it wouldn't be so simple. So, he was hesitating. He was cold-blooded and cruel. But he didn't want to see his grandchildren die tragically. However, his keen intuition had told him that there was a great danger down there. I can't go down. He had always been cautious. So, he couldn't go down even though he was anxious. His pair of the wisp eyes were searching everywhere. He wanted to find the so-called hidden danger. The great elder finally despaired. Chu Yang tightly knitted his brows. He secretly cursed in his heart. This bastard is too calm. He's watching his clan get exterminated. But he's still indifferent? What should I think of to make him come down? The reason why Chu Yang had insisted on fighting this war was to get rid of the O clan first. It wasn't because of the hatred between them. 10 years isn't too late to take revenge. Chu Yang never lacked patience. But he knew that the existence of the O clan was a great threat. It was because their poison was simply impossible to guard against. Even the Ao clan was extremely wary of this clan that was good at using poison. Mo Tianji's Ji Rong had already caused a turmoil in the Jianghu. The news that Ao Xie Yun was being hunted down had also spread out. The Jianghu was on the verge of erupting. However, no one had made a move. It was because of the existence of the O clan. After all, not everyone was immune to poison like him. Even monarch-level experts couldn't do it. The Yo clan could create a terrifying effect if they didn't remove the roots. And it was difficult for any clan to bear the consequences of the O clan's poison. Their martial strength wasn't frightening. What was frightening was their poison. The Jianghu wouldn't be seriously damaged if the O clan wasn't eliminated. Therefore, the O clan could only vent their anger on the other clans. Therefore, Chu Yang had made a prompt decision to formulate a plan to destroy the O clan after he had learned about the situation in the Jianghu. However, Oku Feng wasn't coming down no matter what. So, it was undoubtedly a sore point. And it would become a sore point for all the big clans if he were to escape. Chu Yang rolled his eyes. Then he hardened his heart and shouted, "You guys hurry up and deal with the people below. I will deal with this old bastard above. Do you think I won't go up if you don't come down? I can only create an opportunity if I get close to him. Otherwise, it would be impossible to catch him since he was always on top and below. Nothing ventured, nothing gained." Xie Zhiqiu was startled. He hastily said, "What are you doing? Don't take any risks. Don't move. He'll run away if you move." Chu Yang said in a low voice, "I also didn't want to face this old devil alone. But I didn't expect that this guy would be so cowardly and cold-blooded. His grandchildren have been killed, and his foundation has been destroyed. But he can still remain calm. But he won't run away if he sees that I'm only a king-level expert, right? He'll only torture you to death." Xie Zhiqiu snorted. He then lowered his head and said, "It's too risky. I still feel that it's inappropriate for you to go up." "Don't worry." Chu Yang tucked the corner of his robe into his waist. He then raised his eyes and looked up. "Tisk, be careful." Xie Zhiqiu lowered his head and solemnly said. Chu Yang nodded. Then he let out a long whistle. "Old beast, you don't dare to come down, right? This young master will come up and play with you." Chu Yang's figure shot up like a meteor. He borrowed strength twice in the air and landed in front of Oku Feng. Oku Feng smiled cruelly. "Ha! Junior, you're the chief culprit of today's disaster, aren't you? It's rare for you to have such courage. So, this old ancestor will fulfill your wish today." He looked around and saw that there was a battle going on below. It seemed that there was no special expert present. Oku Feng finally felt relieved. They wouldn't have let their leader, King of Hell Chu, throw away his life if there was a hidden super expert, right? He felt relieved as soon as he thought of this. But he also felt somewhat annoyed. "I would have gone down earlier if I had known this earlier. It's too late to go down now. Everyone is dead." He was thinking this when he saw that Junior pull out his sword with a schwa sound. Then he loudly said, "Oku Feng, old beast, come up to meet your death." Oku Feng became furious. He thought, "You have many people down there. I'll be outnumbered if I go down. But you've come up here. Why should I be afraid of you?" He laughed nastily. "I'll help you since you're courting death." Suddenly, he stretched out his hands, and green smoke started to rise from his 10 fingers. His entire body was shrouded in a mass of green smoke in an instant. The jade tiles under his feet started to corrode as soon as they came in contact with this green smoke. And they started to emit a dense sour smell. The green smoke that's coming out of his body can even corrode stones. Such a poisonous technique is simply world-shocking. Second reading of the sun. My train of thought has been very difficult for the past 2 days. I don't want to write anything. Cough cough. I'm calling everyone to make a post and praise me. For example, I'm very handsome, very confident, very elegant, very well written, and so on. I'm very happy when I see such posts. I'm very happy. And my train of thought is like a tide. The third reading is coming soon. Go and make a post. Don't worry about my embarrassment. It would be even better if you praise me at length. I'm bashfully leaving the post. And I'm asking for votes. To be continued. Chapter 597. Xie Zhiqiu was startled. This Oku Feng has already reached the peak of emperor level. He's only one step away from becoming a monarch-level expert. Xiejichou's chest ached as he thought of this. This bastard's cultivation is already so high, but he still doesn't dare to come down in the face of a group of king-level masters. O Kufeng had already started to fight with Chu Yang. You're still wet behind the ears. You've dared to invade my O clan. This old man will destroy you. It's not an invasion, but a massacre. Chu Yang dodged again and again. He sneered and said, "Coward. Just watch as your family turns into ruins. Let me tell you, I have countless monarch-level guards around me. If you dare to use your full strength, you'll definitely die." O Kufeng was startled. He immediately withdrew his hand and said angrily, "Where is it? Where is it? Call them out and I'll crush them all to death." Chu Yang was speechless. He had seen many experts, but he had never seen such a cowardly expert in his life. O Kufeng raised his eyes and looked all around. Then, his spirit sense spread out in all directions and started to search carefully. Then, a strange smile appeared on his face after a long while. "Little bastard, do you think that this old man will be afraid just because you're bluffing? Today, even if a supreme being was here, you wouldn't be able to escape death." Chu Yang swallowed his saliva. The experts of the O clan had been killed when O Kufeng had been looking around. The last one to die was that great elder. He had been knocked down to the ground by the joint efforts of Gu Du Xing and Dong Wushang. He had looked up with a resentful and powerless expression in his eyes before he had died. Then he had sullenly roared, "Old ancestor." However, O Kufeng had turned a blind eye to him. In fact, he had started to look for the so-called group of monarch-level experts. Chu Yang was truly convinced. No wonder this guy could live for so long. It wasn't without reason. O Kufeng cautiously walked forward. An ominous glint flickered in his eyes. Chu Yang rolled his eyes. Suddenly, he waved his hand and shouted, "Go! Kill him!" O Kufeng was startled. He retreated 100 feet with a schwa sound and returned to his original position. Then he covered his chest with his palms and shouted, "Who is it?" But even after being on guard for a long time, not even half a shadow came over. Chu Yang was already laughing so hard that he was holding his stomach and bending over. He immediately realized that he had been tricked. His old face flushed red, and he angrily said, "Good Junior, I'm going to tear you apart." With a loud shout, his body swayed, leaving behind afterimages in the air as he rushed towards Chu Yang. Chu Yang suddenly felt boundless pressure enveloping him. He suddenly straightened his body and exposed a mocking smile. He waved his hand and said, "Good opportunity. Kill." O Kufeng shouted loudly. Then he somersaulted and went out. The countless afterimages disappeared again. He returned to his original position and looked at Chu Yang in amazement. Chu Yang burst into laughter. "I really didn't expect that there would be such a cowardly emperor-level expert in this world." With just a hand gesture and a few words, he had already become a frightened bird. What a joke! In fact, Chu Yang found it somewhat strange. How did O Kufeng reach his current cultivation when he was so timid and afraid of trouble? However, Chu Yang didn't know that O Kufeng had been extremely daring in those days. He had been so daring that he had gone to the upper three heavens to steal purple crystals. Moreover, he had gone there several times in a row. He had walked in the dark for a long time and had eventually encountered a ghost. Countless people had besieged and intercepted him. Then he had been captured alive. He had been locked in the dungeon and had been subjected to almost all the cruel punishments of the day. After that, the O clan had taken out almost all of its wealth to bail him out. His temperament had changed greatly since that time. He had become a frightened bird like this. He had been cultivating in seclusion all year round. But the shadow in his heart couldn't be eliminated. O Kufeng had been tricked once again. He was furious. His old face had turned purple. He roared like thunder, "Junior, what else can you do apart from bluffing?" Chu Yang coldly snorted and said, "How do you know that I'm bluffing? Let me tell you, O Kufeng. You will die if you dare to come here." O Kufeng angrily howled. His entire body seemed to have become huge in an instant. He walked over step by step with a murderous look on his face. He then said in a sinister manner, "Junior, try to scare me again." Chu Yang sneered and said, "You, come here. Let's go." Oku Feng rushed over with large strides. Chu Yang suddenly tilted his head. It seemed as if he was listening to something. Then his lips squirmed twice. Oku Feng's imposing manner was like a rainbow. But he muttered in his heart when he saw this, "Is there really an ambush?" He couldn't help but hesitate in his heart. Chu Yang turned his head at this moment and looked at Oku Feng. He then shouted, "This could." Oku Feng was startled. "This bastard has tricked me into coming here to throw away my life." He hastily drew back. Suddenly, a sword light flashed in front of his eyes. And it covered the sky and covered the earth. Chu Yang's tribulation sword moved. Cold light pierced 10,000 fathoms to meet his head head-on. Oku Feng shouted loudly and attacked with both of his arms. But Chu Yang then roared, "What harm is there in slaughtering the entire world?" Oku Feng was retreating. But he hastily put his arms together. Then the tribulation sword pierced the two small iron rods in his hands with a ding sound. The tribulation sword's sharpness couldn't penetrate them. Chu Yang felt apprehensive in his heart. What kind of treasure are these two small iron rods of Oku Feng? This is the first time that I've seen a weapon that the tribulation sword can't destroy. Chu Yang instantly made a decision in his heart. I must snatch them and see what these things are. However, Oku Feng was already retreating. So, he was pushed back by a huge thrust at this moment. His body bent over and he was sent flying backwards. Chu Yang's long sword flickered and blocked Oku Feng's weapon. In fact, Oku Feng was sent flying back 400 feet. Oku Feng roared loudly. He knew that he had been tricked, but he couldn't free his hands to counterattack. So, he was sent flying back. He was remorseful in his heart when Chu Yang suddenly raised his left hand and slapped him in the face with a bang sound. This slap wasn't heavy, but it was an extreme humiliation. Oku Feng couldn't bear it any longer. He roared loudly and was about to counterattack. However, he saw Chu Yang fiercely withdraw his sword and draw back. Then he indifferently said, "Well, deal with him." Oku Feng turned pale with fright. So, the real attack is here? He didn't have time to attack. Instead, he jumped up with a schwa sound and soared high into the sky. He then tried to escape, but he didn't feel anything. He turned his head in the sky and saw that Chu Yang was holding his sword. He was laughing so hard that he couldn't breathe. Laughter was also heard from below. Oku Feng flew into a rage. "I've been tricked again. I've been tricked by the same trick 4 times in a row. Not only have I been tricked, but I've also been slapped in the face. This is a great humiliation." Oku Feng raised his head and roared loudly. His white hair fluttered in the air as he landed. The murderous aura in his eyes gradually became thicker. "I'll kill you first no matter what tricks you have up your sleeves this time." Chu Yang waved his hand again. "Attack!" Oku Feng paid no attention to him. Instead, he sped up and rushed forward. Chu Yang shouted loudly, "Great! Kill!" Oku Feng turned a deaf ear to him. The anger in his heart became more and more intense. In fact, his eyes had turned red. "You still want to deceive me? No way. Do you think that I'm mentally retarded? This old man has been bitten by a snake in the morning and is afraid of ropes for 10 years. That's all." Chu Yang exposed a panic-stricken look on his face. He pulled out his long sword with a clang sound. Then he pointed the tip of his sword at Oku Feng and shouted, "Kill him!" Oku Feng felt apprehensive in his heart, but he still didn't stop. "Oh my God!" Chu Yang turned around and ran away. "Little bastard! You've really been deceiving me." Oku Feng had summoned up his courage and rushed over in anger. However, he was still somewhat nervous in his heart. But all his worries had been put down when the opposite party had fled. So, they had transformed into a monstrous anger. Chu Yang fled back and forth on the roof at lightning speed. "Everyone, run quickly. This old bastard has gone crazy." Then he shouted again, Everyone, let's attack him together. We'll crush him to death by relying on our numbers. Then he suddenly shouted in panic, someone come. Someone. Quickly come here, you asterisk 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 asterisk. Oku Feng became more and more complacent. His heart was filled with the pleasure of a cat playing with a mouse. He laughed cruelly, little bastard, let's see where you'll escape to. Help me! Chu Yang screamed miserably. Oku Feng turned a deaf ear to him and pounced over. Chu Yang clenched his teeth. I'll stake it all. His hands suddenly emitted a dazzling sword light. Then he launched a series of sword moves at the same time. Suddenly, wind and thunder rose from the ground. Countless sword lights crisscrossed and submerged Oku Feng's entire body. Oku Feng crazily shouted in the midst of the sword lights, "Ignorant junior, your swordsmanship is good. But how can you injure your ancestor with this level of cultivation?" Ha! The sword light pervaded the air and blocked Oku Feng's line of sight. Xie Zhiqiu took advantage of this opportunity and leapt up as light as a feather. Then he hid in ambush from afar. Gu Duxing and Dong Wushang also looked at each other. Then they also jumped up one after another. Chu Yang withdrew the sword light. He then turned around and fled while shouting, "Oh no!" Oku Feng's clothes were in disarray. However, his body and muscles weren't damaged in the slightest. Only white scars could be seen on his body. The body of an emperor-level expert had been tempered by the poison technique. So, its degree of hardness had far surpassed the hardness of fine iron. Moreover, Chu Yang's sword moves were scattered. So, he couldn't gather his full strength. Moreover, his martial power was far inferior to Oku Feng's. So, he couldn't injure Oku Feng even with the sharpness of the Calamity Sword. Oku Feng burst into loud laughter. Then, he quickly rushed over. "Junior, do you still want to escape?" Chu Yang panted for breath as he desperately tried to escape. Oku Feng shouted as he chased after him. Then, he grinned evilly, "Little, this old man won't let you die. I'll catch you and run away. I'll see why you're not afraid of our O clan's poison." "Ha!" Chu Yang angrily said, "Your entire clan is done for. Only a coward like you is left. Quickly commit suicide. What are you waiting for?" Oku Feng flew into a rage and said, "I'll kill you first." His agility skill was extremely fast. He had already caught up with Chu Yang while he was speaking. Suddenly, Chu Yang shouted loudly, "He has arrived at the trap. Quickly attack." Oku Feng gawked. He hesitated for a moment. Then Chu Yang slipped away like a fish. Then he turned his head and smiled, "Old bastard, you've been fooled again." Oku Feng almost vomited blood. He simply shut his mouth and chased after Chu Yang with all his might. He wouldn't believe Chu Yang no matter what he said. More than 200 king-level experts are still looking up from below. Why would I be afraid if they don't come up? The most important thing right now is to ruthlessly deal with this evil little bastard. Who can stop me if I want to leave later? Chu Yang flew away for another 200 feet. Then he once again shouted, "Attack!" Oku Feng evilly grinned. He rushed over without any scruples. He stretched out his hands. "Junior, do you think that I still believe you?" It seemed as if a pair of big hands had flashed out of the void at this moment. Then, they carried a heaven-collapsing and earth-shattering momentum as they ruthlessly pounded on his chest with a loud bang. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.